Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. When we do open up the phone lines to join the conversation, it is 542-562, what is it, 32? 3241? 3261, I'm sorry, 562-542-3261, or 562-LibDan1. I haven't quite memorized the number yet, apparently. Usually when I'm saying it, I'm reading it over my Google Voice window, and I didn't have that open at the time, so I had to open it up real quick. Anyway, thank you all Liberal Danils for coming in and joining the show today after we did the special, extra special show yesterday, doing the live reaction of Donald Trump's address to the joint session of Congress. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure a lot of people needed a joint after watching his speech to that session of Congress. So, anyway, you could also join us in the chat rooms, liberaldanradio.com, which is the YouTube channel, twitch.tv/liberaldanradio over there as well. Support the show. Remember to like the video, share the streams, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Most of you have. You can also buy super chats, super stickers, gift memberships here, buy memberships here. You can also gift and buy subscriptions over on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Doesn't cost you anything. You can also Venmo Liberal Dan on Liberal Dan on Venmo. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio, or go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button, and support the show, one-time contribution, or patreon.com/liberaldan, or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either way will get you there. You can support the show on a month-to-month basis. A bunch of stuff to talk about today, including yesterday's shit show and many other things on tap to be discussed. Some smaller issues, some larger issues. Definitely an interesting SCOTUS ruling that we will go over, and as we do on Liberal Dan Radio here often, we will go over the ruling. Now, this ruling was a shorter one because it's an unsigned per curiam ruling. However, it's longer than most per curiam rulings, and we will go into why when we get there. Shouts out to everybody so far in the chat. You got Jackie, Progressively Independent, Steven Sayers, Alton, Progressively, I already said Progressively Independent, Aaron, one half of the Mod Squad, Steve from across the pond.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap!
Josh, who else has I met? Let's see, Brian has MT Brett on. There'll be a few folks over there for a bit. I mean, if you want to watch somebody else's show, go right ahead and do it. And you could always come back and watch this stream. You could swing back in when that stream is done, or you can also watch it later. You can all the shows are available to watch whenever you wish, whenever you want, and it always helps the algorithm to watch shows that you might miss. So thanks for everybody, though, who have showed up here. We'll try and talk about some of the smaller stuff or stuff that'll take less time at the beginning of the show. Let's see, update. My wife did her first physical therapy, occupational therapy, I guess, sessions today. It was more of an intake on both of them. So she seemed to be doing, I guess, better than what they anticipated her to have her to be doing. They were impressed with the fact that she's walking back and forth with the aid of a walker, but walking back and forth to the bathroom without assistance, which is one of my main concerns of her coming home. Is I wanted to make sure that she could at least do that, because I can handle everything else, but I can't necessarily do that for her. So it's good to see that she's making some progress. Of course, there's more stuff that we're going to have to buy, more stuff that won't be covered by insurance, like, other things that make the house, easier for her to get around with, and just makes her more comfortable. So we still have the GoFundMe up. The link to the GoFundMe is in the show description. And if you have already contributed, thank you so much. If you haven't yet and you can afford to do so, please do so. But in all ways, please remember to share that link as well, because we could definitely use the assistance when it comes to that, especially because she still hasn't been working. So we're down her paycheck for the last few weeks, on top of having to pay for everything. So let's see. Chin Chin Dan. Nah, it's cool. Started here this time Wednesday. I can catch Brian tomorrow. Hey, I fully support that decision. I know Boston Brian has his fans, and I'm not going to begrudge Boston Brian for having fans or having a show or whatever. It's good for him. I wish him and everybody success. We need all left-leaning shows to be elevated. We need everybody to be all hands on deck and get everybody having at least 10 or 100 times the current subscribers that they have, so that everybody can help fight back against the MAGA tyranny that is going on in this nation. So anyway, so let's see what to talk about first. Let me just grab a drink first because I'm thirsty. Even though it's Wednesday, it was Taco Wednesday here at the Liberal Dan household. The kids very much appreciated the fact that, they got tacos today. So, it is. Wait, I'm sorry. That's Trump's line.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Of course, Donald Trump and his Taco Bowl activism, i.e. on Cinco de Mayo, when he posted from his office that he was eating a taco bowl, and that makes, I guess, MAGA folks think that he is, good to, Hispanic folks who are here already, I guess. I don't know why people would delude themselves into believing that Donald Trump was good for anybody, but I can't get in the mind of a MAGA person. I can't quite understand their mindset. That's why I'm Liberal Dan and not Conservative Dan or MAGA Dan. I don't know. I'm afraid that I'm just too afraid that if for some reason a show would come on. Let's see if that's the case. Like this year, April 1st is on a Tuesday. So that there's no chance of me doing it this year, but I would just be concerned about, if I would start the show and start completely make it rebranded and be like Conservative Dan Radio, talk from the right, that's right, or whatever, and do that on an April Fool's show that not enough people would get that it was April 1st and might just start tuning me out, which would, suck. So I think 1 year I may have done a what if sort of scenario. What if I was Conservative Dan, and then tried to go over all of the things that I would believe as, quote, Conservative Dan, and it still disagreed with most MAGA stuff anyway. So, cheesesteak. I love me some cheesesteak, although they don't really have good cheesesteaks here in New Orleans that I've found. And the one place that was close, I think, is closed. So, anyway, where to start off first? Apparently, in the not so serious side of news, scientists are playing around with the safety of humanity. I often begrudge or mock conservatives who want to use kindergarten cop biology when it comes to trans issues. Because the little boy in kindergarten cop goes, "All boys have a penis and all girls have a vagina," and then all the kids laugh. And then, of course, another time he goes, "My dad's a gynecologist. He gets to look at vaginas all day." And, that little cute scene or whatever. But that's pretty much the limit of where the scientific learning stopped for MAGA conservative type folks and other folks who are horrible when it comes to trans issues. And while I don't believe that we should be following, biology from kindergarten cop, I think there might be a lesson or two to be learned from some other movies that aren't necessarily scientific, but still might make a decent point. Like, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is, you kind of look at the things and be like, this might not be a great idea, eh? According to NPR, hoping to revive woolly mammoths, scientists have created woolly mice. Scientists have genetically engineered mice with some key characteristics of an extinct animal that was far larger, the woolly mammoth. The woolly mouse, easy for me to say, marks an important step towards achieving the researchers' ultimate goal, bringing a woolly mammoth-like creature back from extinction, they say. For us, it's a big deal, says Beth Shapiro, chief science officer at Colossal Biosciences, a Dallas company, blah, 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 blah. I don't think Beth Shapiro is the same person as Ben. I mean, I can't imagine that anybody related to Ben Shapiro would actually be an evolutionary biologist, but, you know.
It is what it is.
Thank you. I mean, considering the fact that Ben Shapiro doesn't understand why it would be a good thing to have a WAP. Let's see. The company announced the creation of woolly mice Tuesday in a news release and posted a scientific paper online detailing the achievement. This is really a validation of what we have in mind for our longer-term de-extinction project. You know, again, we had a movie about that. It didn't go well. That maybe we should, you know, just allow things from the past to stay in the past. Maybe there's a reason why they went extinct, and maybe we shouldn't be bringing those back up. You know, just a thought. You know, granted, you know, you shouldn't take all of movies seriously. You shouldn't even take this little rant seriously. But, you know, maybe, just maybe, we should consider the fact that nature might actually find a way, and, you know, we end up having, you know, hordes of rampaging woolly mammoths trampling across the tundra or whatever. So, yeah, not a good idea in my opinion. If I didn't already have a Hypocrite of the Week this week, which I did, it was Monday that we had Hypocrite of the Week. If I didn't already have that, I would have made this, or Donald Trump would have been my Hypocrite of the Week for this particular reason. According to Axios, Trump's ICE frees hundreds of immigrants under catch and release. Now, I thought that Donald Trump and MAGA folks had a problem with the idea of catch and release when it came to people who were immigrants and who were undocumented. I thought they were critical of President Biden when they did that. They were complaining that, oh, you know, we can't just let them free. You can't just let them wander because they'll never come to their court dates. They'll never do what we need them to do, blah, 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 blah. Of course, I'm sure there's going to be some reason why MAGA folks will make an excuse as to why Trump doing this is okay, but Biden doing it was not. They'll either find a way to blame Biden anyway or whatever, but Donald Trump's administration has used catch and release program to free 461 undocumented immigrants from custody since he took office, partially because of limited detention space in U.S. immigration facilities, Axios has learned. During the campaign, Trump repeatedly criticized the Biden administration use of catch and release, and last month he set plans to end the practice, but for now, it remains part of Trump's immigration enforcement strategy. I mean, if Biden did it, is it really part of Trump's strategy, or is Trump just using Biden's strategy and not admitting to it? Well, that's par for the course for most conservatives. I mean, we have many examples of conservatives taking credit for things that Democrats do or Democratic policies in and of themselves. Way back when Obama was talking about the shovel-ready jobs and people wanted to make that into a big flop. But while Obama was talking about those shovel-ready jobs, we were driving across like Mississippi and Alabama, and we were seeing signs from the governors of those states, who are obviously Republicans, bragging about the fact that shovel-ready jobs or whatever people were being put to work in those states. And why were they being put to work on those infrastructure projects in those states? Because of the Democrats and President Obama passing the legislation to get those infrastructure projects rolling. But the Republicans took credit for it. President Biden signed into law some innovative things that included the CHIPS Act. No, not CHIPS Act is the next thing. Getting ahead of myself. Biden... right, was it that? I don't know. Just lost my train of thought. But during the State of the Union last night, not State of the Union, the joint address, the Petersburg Address, so to speak. During that speech, I'm having problems with words today, apparently. But anyway, during Trump's speech last night to the joint session of Congress, Trump started taking credit for microchips being built, created, manufactured, whatever, in the United States. Again, that was something that President Biden did. Another thing that President Biden did was he made it so that you could put broadband internet into rural areas. And Governor Jeff Landry, Republican in Louisiana, coined Gumbo 2.0, a project that was meant to spread broadband across rural areas of Louisiana. This, of course, was made possible by, Joe Biden's proposed and passed legislation. But did he give Joe Biden any credit for this? No. So there are many times where Republicans are out there and are, trying to take credit for what it is that the Democrats are doing. And of course, the other side of that coin is that the Republicans will blame Democrats for the bad things that the Republicans are actually the ones doing. Because not only is hypocrisy a conservative prerequisite, so is projection. So what is catch and release, though, you might ask? Catch and release says that non-violent, undocumented immigrants who have been arrested by U.S. agents are freed after agreeing to return their cases to be heard by an immigration court. And if this was so bad when Biden was doing it, why is it now okay when Trump is doing it? Trump would just probably say,
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. However, I don't expect him to admit any hypocrisy or the Republicans to admit any Trumpian hypocrisy on this. They'll probably, again, find some excuse to justify why Trump is doing this. But if you agree with me and you think that, we should be calling out these clowns on what they're doing and taking credit for Democratic ideas and then also doing the things that they blame the Democrats for doing, leave your comments down below. If you have some crazy reason why it was okay for Donald Trump to do what he criticized Biden for doing, also leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. So that's that. Oh, we got Yakety Smacks in the chat. Suzanne is in the chat. Good to see y'all as well. Who else have I missed? I should have a Yakety Smack. Don't talk back. I should find some sort of, or make some sort of sound for you as well, right? So, but yeah. So the hypocrisy is just crazy. It's absolute crazy hypocrisy that is going on here with the Republicans. Let me switch the scene real quick because I do have a background for this one. Do I have this one? Maybe I don't have that one. No, I don't have that one. Oh well, I'll just leave this background then and I'll record another video with it. Let me take another sip first. Hey, it's Impeccable Living who didn't miss the show today.
Oh my.
Thank you for joining us, Impeccable Living. Appreciate seeing you. Thank you for your continued support of the show. So, I'm wondering one day how long my favorites bar will be on my soundboard, because I have at least 3 for listeners or watchers of the program, and with a 4th intended for Jolie and maybe a 5th for Aaron because of the air horn that I do for Aaron. But yeah, Evie Zant, Trump is a liar and a hypocrite. Yes, he is. But anyway, one of the things that MAGA and Republicans like to say when it came to Trump's policy towards Russia versus like Obama and Biden's policies towards Russia is that they would always say, well, Putin didn't take land during any of Trump's presidency or during his first presidency, or there's never been a time where Russia took land when Trump was president. They said those things. They say those things. They made those excuses and arguments. Of course, it was a ridiculous argument to make because Putin, during President Trump's first term, didn't have to invade any territory in order to gain power and influence. Donald Trump ceded power in the Middle East to Putin And also, Donald Trump worked to weaken NATO. So why would Putin need to do anything when Donald Trump was doing his work for him? And Donald Trump still is continuing to do Putin's work for him by claiming that Ukraine was responsible for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, by basically pandering and carrying the water of Putin, going after Zelensky, making a spectacle of his, meeting with Zelensky and everyone else that was there at the White House on Friday. So there's all that. However, the Republicans, the MAGA folks, the people who try and say that Putin has not taken land during a Trump presidency or while Trump was president, they are now wrong. They are now absolutely 100% wrong. According to a website, Russia Matters, which is a site launched in 2016 by Harvard Kennedy School's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, made possible with support of Carnegie Corporation of New York and the Stanton Foundation. The project's main aim is to improve the understanding of Russia and U.S.-Russian relationship among America's policymakers and concerned public. So it's basically an American site created by educators trying to educate the people about what's going on with Russia. Well, according to the report card, in the past month, February 5th to March 4th, 2025, Russia gained 140 square miles, an area roughly equivalent to about 1.5 Martha's Vineyard Islands. Now, Americans are often mocked for refusing to use the metric system. I guess this is another example of Americans just not using the metric system. They'll find any excuse to not use the metric system. I mean, at least they also use square miles, but still, the equivalent of size of 1.5 Martha's Vineyards Islands. In the past week, Russia gained 21 square miles, the equivalent of one Manhattan Island. So it is absolutely untrue now when Republicans will try and tell you that Russia has never gained land while Trump was president. And if you ever see one saying that, you can now show them this video and say, this is why you're wrong. Of course, they might mock you. Why would I watch a liberal Dan radio video? I'll tell them because he's, that's how you get good information, by watching him and not the, mass media, corporate media outlets, right? But anyway, this is one way that you can show your MAGA friends or MAGA associates or people you might know or see online that are supporting Donald Trump and making these ridiculous claims. It's one way to educate them, to let them know that they're wrong. I will put a link to the report card for the Russia-Ukraine war in the video that I post for this, so you can show them too that I'm not just talking out of my ass. Anyway, what do you think? Agree, disagree? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi and or a Putin apologist, have a good day. So there you go. Let's see. Impeccable living. I did do some fun gay stuff though. I mean, don't you always?
Oh my.
There we go. Let's see. One of the other things wanted to talk about before we move on to some of the larger topics is the fact that, the Department of Veterans Affairs is planning a reorganization that includes cutting over 80,000 jobs from the agency that provides healthcare and other services for millions of veterans. And there is an internal memo that was released, that was linked to from this article. Let's switch on over to the memo. March 4th, 2025, Chief of Staff. Undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, other key officials. The memorandum initiates Department of Veterans Affairs department-wide review of mission, organization, and structure in order to achieve efficiencies dictated by President Trump's February 11, 2025 executive order implementing DOGE and subsequent February 26, 2025 Office of Personnel Management and Office Management and Budget guidance document on RIF and reorganization plans. VA, in partnership with our DOGE leads, will move out aggressively while taking a pragmatic and disciplined approach to identify and eliminate waste, reduce management and bureaucracy, reduce footprint, and increase workforce efficiency. I mean, if you wanted to reduce the footprint, DOGE would actually stop trying to make people, keeping people from working from home, and instead of forcing them to work in the office, it's more efficient to have people work from home. But hey, there you go. So additionally, additionally, a portion of the savings garnered will be reinvested in the veterans we serve and the systems required to support our workforce and execute our mission. Following a thorough review, and I have no reason to believe that whatsoever. Following a thorough review of mission structure, the department will effect a VA-wide RIF in August to resize and tailor the workforce to the mission and revise structure. The effort will require the entirety of the VA staff and organizations to work together in a collaborative fashion, as well as to coordinate with DOJ and the administration as a whole to achieve desired results. To return to our 2019 end strength numbers of just under 40,000 employees. Furthermore, VA administrators and staff offices need to detail sufficient personnel to support this effort, as outlined in the memo. Implementation timeline, information gathering due March 10th. Let's see, April 10th and April 14th, some phase 2 requirements by OMB and OPM. And then LOE, interdepartment, a department-wide review will be completed on May 9th. VA will publish its plan in June. And then for the end of fiscal year 2025, as required by OBM and OPM. Throughout all phases, there will be ongoing reviews and interim briefings and decision points. Additional implementation guidance is forthcoming. Program implementation, yada, yada, yada. Signed, Christopher Sayrick, whatever. The secretary will chair an initial senior level meeting on March 5th. Today, invitation is forthcoming. So there you go. And so they're looking to cut about 80,000 people from the VA, which, according to my sources, is about 20% of the overall workforce of the people that work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, i.e. the VA. So cutting a fifth of the workforce seems to me like it probably could very well be overkill. And it's much larger than the amount of people that they wanted to cut via their suggested, self resignations or whatever, the deal, the fork in the road memo that was received and by many people, including people at the VA. But yeah, 20% of the workforce going away that quickly is going to be detrimental to our veterans. It's going to be detrimental to our country, because imagine, the areas that have like VA hospitals, the areas that have lots of people working for the VA, they're all going to be unemployed and collecting unemployment insurance. So this whole DOJ thing is going to bankrupt our unemployment systems. That's my bold prediction. I don't know how bold it is, because it seems rather reasonable to think that if you lay off that many people that quickly, that those people are going to go get unemployment, and then the systems are going to crash, and you'll have to then bolster them with the money that you just saved by cutting everybody. Again, as Trump said during the COVID-19 pandemic, I didn't agree with him then because I didn't think that the cure would be worse than the problem. But right now, Donald Trump is making the cure worse than whatever problem he perceives, which problems that he perceives are probably not actually problems. Let's see. Ellesmere, Delaware has a small but important VA hospital. There's also a VA hospital in the city of New Orleans. I don't know how small it is, but again, I would think that all VA hospitals are important because you have veterans that live everywhere. Veterans need health services. Veterans need other support. Veterans probably should get more aid than what is currently spent on them, and they probably need more employees to deal with the issues that veterans deal with day in and day out, be it mental stress issues from post-traumatic stress disorder, whether it be, ongoing health issues that take place, maybe you served next to a burn pit like Joe Biden's son or whatever. Maybe, you're just dealing with injuries, or maybe you just have general needs that you've earned as a person who is a veteran and served our country in the military. Those, things that need to be done that will be less likely to be done if you're cutting 20% of the workforce. And as we all know, I guarantee you that all of this bloviating in this memo, I have no reason to believe that they're still not gonna just cut with the chainsaw and not do the smarts of measure twice, cut once, and then use a scalpel to cut instead of the chainsaw. But they all love the chainsaw. They all love the fact that they're just hacking and slashing things away, because to them, any cuts are good cuts, which is full of crap, because that's not true. Many cuts can and will be harmful to folks. Let's see. Steve. Oh, Steve says, "Why can't you look after yourself and not down on me? Hey, well, I understand now. You're whatever. Blah blah blah." Oh, that's from a song. Okay. Every time I hear Doge, I want to throw myself into a wall. I remember when Doge was just simply a meme of a dog. Doge was just simply a meme of a dog, and that's all it was. And then Elon Musk had to go ruin it by making it cryptocurrency, and then they had to ruin it even more by making it, a terrible government thing. It's not even a department, it's just a thing. So, exactly, Yakety Smack. They just want to move money around to cater to fat cat wealthy. VA in New Orleans is 3,000 plus employees. Thank you, Allison, for adding that. So yeah, we have a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs needlessly, and more importantly, who are going to be harmed by those people that lost the jobs. Not just the families of the people who are now going to be unemployed, but the people who receive services from those formerly employed people. So, I do have a change for this scene. I did make that one. Yeah, they are playing a shell game with people's lives, and all to enrich their wealthy billionaire friends and other people, and for Putin as well. Because if you're going to treat the veterans like crap, maybe that might make people less likely to serve, because if they know that they're not going to get the treatment that they need coming out of the VA, or when they need the VA, they're probably not going to want to serve in the first place. Right? Excuse me. So the VA go to as a rural clinic. If we lose staff, then we will have to drive for 3-4 hours to treatment. And that's very typical. I mean, when Bobby Jindal, former governor of Louisiana, was in charge of the Louisiana Department of Health, he turned I think it was a $20 million budget deficit to a $200 million budget surplus, which means he took money that should have been spent on the care of for the care of the people who are poor. They took that, and they ran a surplus with it. There's no reason to run a surplus with government funds. If you run a surplus with government funds, that just makes you less likely to get the same amount of government funds in the future. You have to fight to get more in the future if you're not going to spend it. So it's irresponsible to not spend those funds on the people that need it. But one of the ways that Bobby Jindal saved the money in the state of Louisiana in our Medicaid system is by shutting down rural clinics altogether, which meant that if you're on what's the area that's called the North Shore of Louisiana, you would either have to go to Baton Rouge or to New Orleans to get your care. And how likely are you to be able to make that drive if you're living in poverty? You can't afford the gas. You might not even have a car. You might have to take public transportation, or you might be able to afford to get a ride to the doctor's office every now and then when you need to, but you can't necessarily guarantee yourself that you're going to get a ride to New Orleans or Baton Rouge or to any other major city from a rural area. And as such, you're going to make it more likely that you're going to let your health problems sit and fester until they become major health problems, and then you have to use the emergency room, and that just ends up costing us more money in the long term, which is not efficient, and it's definitely government waste. So, anywho, Real Bill P, I can never forgive anyone that voted for Trump, period. I mean, I don't blame you. I can't do it either. It's deplorable. Voting for Trump at this point, it just doesn't make any sense. Especially the people that are poor, the people who he will harm the most, especially the people who, absolutely were voting against their best interests, like the people who were like the Muslims who were all mad at the Biden administration, who thought that somehow it couldn't get worse for the Palestinian people if Trump became president. And they quickly found out the hard way that that wasn't true whatsoever, because now he's wanting to take over Gaza and raise it and then develop it with, resort properties or whatever it is that he's going to do, right? So, anywho, I changed my background, but I hadn't started talking about this new subject yet. But as you can see, Al Green greater than Marge Green, old MTG, old 6B, as Representative Crockett called her. Last night was a crap show for the entire country. Just Donald Trump being a national embarrassment. Of course, people are now saying, among people who watched, Donald Trump polled very well amongst the people who watched. Probably because a good portion of the people who don't support Donald Trump or his policies checked out and said, we're not going to watch this because we don't feel like we have to, because we don't want to hear his dumb voice or his dumb ideas or whatever. So you're having a weighted, skewed, biased audience already who is now going to tell you that they loved what he said. Well, of course they did. The odds are that most of the people that watched last night are going to love what he said because, again, the people that voted against him probably didn't want to hear that crap. I didn't want to hear that crap. I just felt it was my responsibility to give live commentary on it because I do a podcast, and if I cover politics, that's a political event. I needed to cover it. So that's why I had to do it. And I appreciate everybody else who joined me last night as well, even though it was tough to have to watch and listen and hear all the lies. But the whole thing started off with, they were saying, decorum. People were talking about decorum for the whole thing. And, Al Green got up, pointed his cane, yelled out at Trump that he was wrong, that he was that there was no mandate for him winning, which there is none. There was no mandate for Donald Trump whatsoever. And so Al Green, I think, put most of the Democrats to shame. I mean, there's one thing of just sitting there holding little signs all peacefully, and then there's the way you actually dissent, the way you actually fight back against, you fight back against tyranny, fight back against the self-proclaimed king, dictator Donald Trump.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
So, but we've had several examples of Republicans lacking decorum because the Democrats were always criticized last night for their lacking decorum. Speaker Johnson was saying that Al Green basically had to have the Sergeant of Arms come over and make him follow the rules of decorum. But there's no requirement of the Republicans to follow the rules of decorum. Like when they were escorting Representative Green out of the chamber, the Republicans started singing "na na na na, hey hey, goodbye." How is that not a violation of decorum? Melanie Stansbury was the Democratic representative from New Mexico who held out the sign right along the aisle. I mean, that was a good placement of herself to be right in camera shot so that you could see "this isn't normal" written in a sign. Lance Gooden, Republican congressperson from Texas, ripped it out of her hands. Is that decorum, Speaker Johnson? You also have plenty of examples of lacks of decorum from the past. From Joe Wilson shouting out, "You lie." I think I mistakenly said yesterday it was Joe Barton. I will do a mea culpa, and it was Joe Wilson who said that. MTG, 6B, Marjorie Taylor Greene, shouted "You lie" to Biden. Bobo the Clown and MTG interrupted Biden on the Afghanistan withdrawal. Even Sam Alito, the dumbest Supreme Court justice in U.S. history, mouthed "not true" about Citizens United, which just goes to show there's a double standard of decorum rules when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. And it's the same double standard that I've talked about time and time again on this show, where when Republicans act badly, when Republicans act in bad faith, when Republicans are loud and obnoxious and rude or mean or whatever, everybody looks at the Republicans and are just like, that's just the Republicans being Republicans. That's not a big deal. And this is the people who are not Republicans saying that. Of course, the Republicans love when they do it. The MAGA folks loved when Bobo the Clown and MTG, stood up and did their thing on the House floor, in the House chambers or whatever, in the congressional chambers. But when Democrats do it, if we're not 100% perfect all of the time, we get criticized. We get ridiculed for lacking decorum. We should know better. We should be the better people. No. It's one of the things I disagree with when it comes to Michelle Obama and her. When they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, kick them down because they're already in the dirt. don't give them the advantage of the ability to go low where we're not allowed to go low. Hell, at this point, go lower. Because you have a Nazi-loving, self-declared king in the office of the president who's ceding power to Putin, who's cutting things ridiculously, and who is handing over most power to an unelected immigrant. Not that I have a problem with immigrants, but Elon Musk is somebody, if he was a Democrat, I'm sure the Republicans would hate him. But because he's on their side, they believe, they love him. But yeah, it's just sheer hypocrisy. And the hypocrisy of it, and the how the media, and it's not even just the people that do it, it's the media that does it too. The media will just kind of look at the Republicans and just be like, meh, that's just Republicans being Republicans. And meanwhile, the Democrats, again, they act out, oh, they should be ashamed of themselves, or they should have known better, they should have done better. No, we need more people like Representative Al Green out there to stand up and get into that good trouble, to stand up and fight against the dictator, to stand up and fight against the self-proclaimed king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
Because, the more we have that, the harder it will be for them to get the job done that they want to do, and that's a screw job on everybody else. Anyway, what do you think? Agree, disagree? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and of course, unless you're Nazi, have a good day. So there's it's old people tennis like Steve Smallcourt. Oh, pickleball? Is that what you're talking about? Trudeau might just help turn corporate America against Trump. That would be interesting to see. I'd love to see that. Exactly, Penny to create. The circus was in D.C. last night. Absolutely. Roxanne, more like a freak show. Why can't it be both? Why can't it be a freak show and a circus all together, all in one? So, we're going to change the background yet again, because we have another video that we want to record about the Supreme Court. Actually, MTG and Boebert did their thing on the floor. Oh, I got all kinds of thoughts about that. I don't want to think about that. That didn't even... And I have a dirty mind, and I didn't even think about that. I mean, Boebert doing her thing, if it was just Boebert doing a thing alone, maybe. But I don't want to think of MTG doing anything, because... But even Boebert is, but at least, we know the things that she does in theaters, but usually it's when the lights are down and there are children around her. But again, it's another double standard, another hypocritical part of, if there was a, Boebert just gets mocked and made fun of for doing tawdry things in the dark in a theater around children. But had that been a Democrat doing that, oh, it would have been the end of the world. Hell, there was a Democrat running for Virginia, I think the state legislature. And that woman was a married woman, and there was videos of her having sex with her husband online. Now, I mean, maybe not the smartest thing to do when it comes to, if you want to be a politician, maybe you shouldn't have all of that available online, at least where you can see your face, right? So if they could clearly see her and she's still running for office, but look, I don't judge her for it. I don't think that should be a thing. As long as you're not, trying to push, horrible, values on other people and trying to push, either draconian measures or puritanical measures via the law to stop other people from doing what you're doing. I don't care if you make naughty videos with whoever you consent to make naughty videos with. That should have nothing to do with your ability to serve in office. But in the real world, we all know that that is going to probably stop a lot of people from serving in office. But again, it's a Democrat that did it, so they made a much bigger stink. If it would have been a MAGA Republican who would have gotten caught with a video, Republican men would have said how hot she was. Republican men would have said, I would have loved to be in that situation. Republican men would have made all sorts of excuses. Republican women, too, probably would have made all sorts of excuses about why this is okay. But yet, now it's because it's a Democrat that's doing it, it's somehow not okay. Hey, Malio, good to see you. Thank you for joining the show. Appreciate you. Again, remember to like, share, and subscribe. When they go low, meet him at the bottom. Exactly. I was like, when they go low, we go frickin' lower. And we punch up. Maybe right in the jimmy. I don't know. Anyway, so we're gonna do another recording. We're doing several recordings today. So make videos, run for office. Got it. Exactly, Allison. Although if Republicans would make those videos, if a Republican was going to be out there and making the same type of videos, like dirty videos to run for office, they would probably have to post it to only clans, right? Yeah. I had to clip that over on Twitch. Sorry. Roxanne, I shouldn't encourage you or Big Hook. Or me, right? Oh, it's the Goddess Kimchi is in the house. Hello, Goddess Kimchi. Good to see you, as always. I need a sound for the Goddess Kimchi. I don't know what the sound might be, but I don't know. I'll take suggestions for the sound for the goddess. Yes, Aaron, exactly. Punch him in the nunt. Yes, 100%. Yes. So anyway. Hold on. Let's pull this open real quick. Actually, that's not what I want to do yet. Where was I? I was here. Let's delete some of these other ones. Take another sip before we do another video. Big Hook. A dirty mind is a terrible thing to waste. Which is why we need to make this show much more popular so that I can do my Liberal Dan After Dark channel. Right? So, anybody have a link for good low light recording setup? Asking for a friend. Let me re-up my Amazon affiliate account, and then I'll give a link and I'll share it with you. How about that? Anyway, so let's go ahead and start this conversation. Last night on his speech, the Pettysburg Address, Donald Trump bragged about how he got all this stuff cut from U.S. aid and how he won't have to, spend all that money. Even though I've said here on Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right, that if Biden was required by the courts to spend the money that, Congress allocated to be spent in a particular way, and if Biden didn't have the option to say, well, I'm just not going to spend it, then guess what? Trump doesn't have that authority either. And I've been saying that, and Republicans and MAGA folks have been fighting back over and over and over again. But it just so happened this morning that the Supreme Court swatted him down, shockingly enough. And I was listening to the radio this morning as I was bringing my wife to her physical therapy, and and the radio show host, Jeff, the guy I listen to, he was saying about how this ruling passed, but at the time, I guess they only heard the ruling and not the dissent. So it was an unsigned ruling that was 5-4. And most unsigned or per curiam cases, we don't know who the people are who voted for and against. But this example, this per curia case, had dissents. And the 4 conservatives who dissented put their names to it. So we all know who was part of the majority because the minority told us who they were. There's maybe one notable exception in recent memory, and that was Bush v. Gore. That was a per curia case that had a whole bunch of dissents as well. However, when I heard it this morning, Jeff, the host, didn't say who it was and didn't know who it was, but I predicted that it would have been the 3 liberal justices plus Justice Roberts, and I thought the 5th may very well have been Amy Coney Barrett. And I was right. That's who it turned out to be. So, again, one of the things I think that I do maybe better than some of the other hosts that are out there is I think for a layperson and someone who's not an attorney, we will sometimes go over the rulings and kind of scroll through them and read what they have to say and give our opinions on the matter. So that being said, we do have the text of the ruling right here, and we will switch over to it right now. Supreme Court of the United States, Department of State et al. Versus AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition on application to vacate the order issued by the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. On February 13th, the U.S. District Court of District of Columbia entered a temporary restraining order enjoining the government from enforcing directives pausing disbursements of foreign development assistance funds. The present application does not challenge the government's obligation to follow that order. On February 25th, the District Court ordered government to issue payments for a portion of the paused disbursements, those owed for work already completed before the issuance of the district's court's temporary restraining order by 11:59 on February 26, several hours before the deadline. Government filed this application to vacate the district court's February 25th order and requested an immediate administrative stay. The Chief Justice entered an administrative stay shortly before the 11:59 deadline and subsequently referred the application to the court. The application is denied. Given that the deadline in the challenged order has now passed and in light of the ongoing preliminary injunction proceedings, the district should clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order, with due regard for the feasibility of any compliance timelines. The order heretofore entered by the Chief Justice is vacated. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily go into the merits of the case. It basically just says the court now needs to explain why or what the requirements should be on the government. The Supreme Court didn't add any additional things. Now, normally that would be a pretty boring ruling to go over, and I haven't gone through any of this. But normally, such a short ruling would be a boring thing that I probably wouldn't even cover, just to say, except for just to say, hey, Donald Trump got smacked down by the Supreme Court. He tried to do something and he failed because the courts told him no. However, this has a dissent, and it's Justice Alito, the dumbest Supreme Court justice in American history, in my opinion, is the one who dissented, and Justices Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh joined, dissenting from the denial of the application to vacate the order. So that tells, if those are the four that dissent, we know who the five are. Again, the three liberal justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, Brown, and then, of course, Chief Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett. Does a single district court judge who lacks jurisdiction have unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars? The answer to the question should be an emphatic no, but a majority of this court thinks otherwise. I am stunned. Well, you're stunned, Justice Alito, because you're a freaking moron, and if you look at my review of his previous authored rulings, you understand why Justice Alito is a moron. But yes, a single district court judge absolutely should be able to put a stay and put a stop to the federal government from doing things that the federal government lacks the authority to do, because that's how our court system works. Our court system works. You bring something to a lower court, to a district court. The district court makes its ruling based on existing precedent and current law. And then if there's a problem with that ruling by one of the parties, they appeal that ruling to an appeals court. And then if they have a problem with that, you appeal that ruling to the, Supreme Court. That's how our court system works, Justice Alito. That's how it works. But for some reason, I moved it away, but I don't want to move it away because that's the that's the thing that we're going over. Anyway, in capsule form, this is what happened. Respondents are a group of American businesses and nonprofits that receive foreign assistance funds from the State Department. They brought suit and claimed the current administration's temporary pause is unlawful. I mean, if presidents lack the authority, like Joe Biden lacked the authority to not spend funds that were allocated by Congress, then neither does Trump. February 13th, the district court issued a temporary restraining order requiring government to halt its funding pause. So the funding pause. That's kind of like a double negative. It based that decision on finding that respondents are likely to succeed in showing that the government violated the Administrative Procedure Act. After issuing a TRO, the district judge grew frustrated with the pace at which the funds were being dispersed, and on February 25th issued a second order requiring the government to pay out approximately $2 billion. The judge brushed aside the government's argument that sovereign immunity barred this enforcement order, and he took 2 steps that, unless corrected, would prevent any other higher court from reviewing and possibly stopping the payments. First, he labeled the order as non-appealable TRO, and second, he demanded that the money be paid within 36 hours. This left the government little time to obtain some review of what was regarded as a lawless order. The government moved for a stay pending appeal in district court, but the judge shrugged off the government's sovereign immunity argument and ignored the government's representation that most of the money in question, once dispersed, could probably not be recovered. Well, I mean, why would it be recovered if it's money that's required to be spent by Congress? Government quickly filed an appeal in the United States Court of Appeals of District of Columbia, but with only 4 hours to spare before the payment deadline, the D.C. Circuit dismissed the government's appeal because it took the district court's TRO label at face value. With nowhere else to turn, the deadline fast approaching, government asked the court to intervene. At the last moment, Chief Justice issued an administrative stay. Unfortunately, a majority has now undone that stay. As a result, the government must apparently pay $2 billion post haste, not because the law requires it. I mean, because the law requires it. I don't know why Alito thinks the law doesn't require it, and it should be a requirement of Alito to actually explain why the law wouldn't require it, but simply because a district judge so ordered. As the nation's highest court, we have a duty to ensure that the power entrusted to federal judges by the Constitution is not abused, which you've done over and over and over again, Sam Alito. You've abused the power of the court greatly by, overlooking, stare decisis, by, your Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, Burrell versus Hobby Lobby, Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire, all these cases where you were the author of these cases, you failed your responsibility to actually act like a good jurist. Time does not allow a lengthy discussion of legal issues presented by this case. Of course it doesn't, because that's your excuse, because you would make a terrible argument if you decided to actually make such an argument. Brief summary suffices to show the district court's order should be vacated, blah, blah, blah. To start, it is clear that the district court's enforcement should be construed as an appealable preliminary injunction, not a mere TRO. A TRO, by its name, is temporary, and its proper role is to restrain challenged conduct, blah, blah, blah. The order here, which commanded the payment of a vast sum, in all likelihood can never be fully recovered, is in no sense temporary. But, I mean, there's additional spending that's to come in the days, weeks, months, years to come. So that's why it's temporary, because this is temporary spending of a much larger spending package. It's ignored that the order merely restrained government's challenged action, blah, blah, blah. Given its irreversibility, the district court's enforcement order effectively gave respondents a portion of the ultimate relief they seek. For these reasons, the Court of Appeals had jurisdiction to consider the government's appeal, and we have jurisdiction to review and summarily vacate that court's erroneous judgment. But there's still more spending to come that's going to be argued. So again, I don't know why Alito doesn't understand this. So even if the majority is unwilling to vacate the district court's order, it should at least stay the district court's enforcement until government is able to petition for a writ of certiorari. In considering whether to issue such a stay, we ask at minimum whether the moving party is likely to prevail on the merits. They already said that the party was likely to prevail on the merits, and whether that moving party is likely to suffer irreparable harm. What irreparable harm is done by spending the money that you're required to spend? If you're required to spend the money by an act of Congress, Congress says, here's the money, we're appropriating the money to here, spend this money as it's determined that the money should be spent at. It's not harmful to then spend that money. The harm is by not spending the money, especially when people need it. There's a legal principle of detrimental reliance where I might make decisions based off certain ideas. And if, certain promises, so if somebody promises me, let's say a new job, let's say I'm extended a new job, I make a move from Louisiana to, let's say, California. Let's say that happened. And then after picking up, selling my house, moving to California, I get to California, I show up at the job and they say, well, we changed our minds, we're not going to hire you. Well, I relied on what you said and what you promised me and the promise of money, promise of job, etc., to my detriment, and I can then sue you under detrimental reliance to basically say I'm I need to recover the fact that I spent this money to do these things, and now you're screwing me over. So that's why I would have a case to bring. Same thing here. I'm sure these entities, these agencies who rely on these funds made decisions based on the fact that they were anticipating these funds to come in. And while government contracts are never, guaranteed, I've worked for 2 places that was under a government contract, and in each position I lost my position because a lack of government funding had come in. That being said, these people, if you've already made the expenditures and made these decisions to spend the money based off of what the government was telling you that they were going to give you, and the government says, nope, we're not going to give it to you anymore, that is a clear example of detrimental reliance, at least under the principles of detrimental reliance, that, these people should be able to recover those funds because they spent time, money, and effort to be able to, do these things that would be funded by the funds that were promised. There's a likelihood of success. The government has shown a likelihood of success on the merits of its argument that sovereign immunity deprives the Supreme Court jurisdiction to enter its enforcement order. Why? Explain why. Sovereign immunity bars a suit by private parties seeking to impose a liability which must be paid from public funds in the Treasury. Edelman versus Jordan. But what, did Julia Edmonds sue Michael Jordan? What? Just kidding. But this is exactly what the district court ordered here. The restrained defendant shall pay all invoices and letter of credit drawdown requests on all contracts for work completed prior to the entry of the court's TRO on February 13th. Exactly. They already spent the money based off of what the government said that they were going to pay them. So if they've already spent the money, government needs to reimburse them. I understand if you want to stop government funds from going to particular things, but you should do it the right way, i.e., have Congress sign a budget, pass a budget, have Trump sign it, and then you get rid of the funding source, because Congress controls its purse strings, not the executive branch. Sovereign immunity does not justify the president from not spending money that Congress ordered to be spent. If it could, then Biden would have been allowed to no longer build the wall, even though Congress appropriated the money towards the building of the wall. I guess Justice Alito doesn't want to be bothered by such little things like facts. Let's just keep on going. Hoping to escape that conclusion, respondents point to Bowen v. Massachusetts. In that case, we held that the APA's waiver of sovereign immunity covered a district court's judgment reversing a final order. Blah, blah, blah. The judgment did not purport to order any payment be made by the United States. After a court sets aside an agency action, a natural consequence may be the release of funds to the plaintiff down the road. Indeed, we have since clarified that Bowen has no bearing on the unavailability of an injunction to enforce a contractual obligation, blah, blah, blah. District court, however, failed to mention, much less reckon with, the other ruling. Excuse me, before plowing ahead with its $2 billion order, nor did it take account any of our previous suggestions that the proper remedy for an agency's recalcitrant failure to pay out may seek specific sums already calculated in, quote, past due. I mean, that could be another remedy, but that doesn't mean that they can't do this here as well. And obviously, 5 of the Supreme Court justices, including your Chief Justice and one of your fellow cronies, Amy Coney Barrett, disagrees with you, Alito, and that's why you're in the dissent on the losing side of this ruling. Finally, the government has a strong argument that the district court's order violates the principle that a federal court may not issue an equitable remedy that is more burdensome to the defendant than necessary to redress the plaintiff's injuries. Requiring government to spend the money on what the government promised to spend is not that. The district court ordered the government to pay all invoices and letter of credit drawdowns requests on all contracts for pre-TRO work completed. Again, this shouldn't be an issue. If you had invoices to the government for work that was done before the TRO, you need to pay that. I mean, how many times can I slap my head? I just don't understand how Sam Alito graduated law school, passed the bar, even passed the LSATs. I don't understand how this moron is able to justify his continued employment by the federal government. If you wanted to get more government efficiency, you would replace Alito with somebody else who knew what they were doing, who knows their shit. Because Justice Alito clearly doesn't know his shit, as we've seen in this dissent, as we've seen in the various rulings that we've covered done by him as well. harm to parties and others. The government has shown that it is likely to suffer irreparable harm to the district court's order if it's not stayed. The government has represented that it would probably be unable to recover the money after it is paid. Why would you have to recover monies that were already spent on things that these agencies spent money on based off the government promises? The irreparable harm would be done to these agencies who did work at the behest of the federal government and then can't get paid. But I mean, I guess that's par for the course for the Trump administration, Donald Trump specifically, because that's how Donald Trump made his millions of dollars. He made millions of dollars by not paying people for the work that's done. So shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that Donald Trump is now trying to not pay people who did work for the government, since he made a living of not paying people who did work for him. That doesn't justify this, and to say that forcing a person to pay monies owed causes irreparable harm is just, it would be like, without me declaring bankruptcy, me telling my credit card company, hey, if I pay you what I owe you, it's going to cause me irreparable harm. So therefore, Justice Alito said I shouldn't have to pay you. Again, how dumb is Sam Alito? We usually balance the equities and weigh the relative harms in close cases. But this shouldn't have been a close case. But you have 4 idiots, led by the chief idiot, Sam Alito, who thinks that irreparable harm might be caused by forcing somebody to pay their bills. These are the same people that would tell people with student loans, you should pay your bills, even though student loans have clear provisions that allow for the forgiveness of the debt in many ways. And it empowers the government to forgive the debt in other cases as well. But these are the same people that would say, oh, well, if you raise what people who have student loans, if you raise their payments like Trump is bound to do when they get rid of the SAVE Act, if that happens, are the students be able to say, well, this is causing me irreparable harm, so therefore I should be able to sue and stop them from forcing me to make this payment, because that's the logic Alito uses? No. It's dumb. It's a bad argument. The argument as to why one shouldn't have to pay on student loans is if you hit your thresholds of, hey, I did 10 years working public service, therefore I should have my loans forgiven. Or I've done 20 to 25 years during my normal payments, and therefore, under the terms of my contract, the loans should be forgiven. If there was a contract in place between these entities, these private entities and nonprofits or whatever, and the federal government that enabled the federal government to say, we're not going to pay the debts owed, then sure, show me that. But that doesn't exist. It's just now Donald Trump saying, we don't feel like we should have to pay you because that's who we are. We're pieces of crap, and we don't want to pay our debts. Today, the court makes the most unfortunate misstep that rewards an act of judicial hubris and imposes $2 billion penalty on American taxpayers. It's not a penalty. The taxpayers elected in a Congress and the president to do the will of the people, and the will of the people included these funds being spent on things. The people might not agree on every single thing that was in these, budget items, but we don't get to pick and choose the budget items because we have a representative democracy. Our government works that way. I'm not going to agree with everything the government spends, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm harmed because government spent money on something that they promised to spend money on, and they're paying back a debt. At least the Lannisters repaid their debts, or the Lannisters always pay their debts. Apparently, the Trump administration, and Donald Trump in particular, is worse than the Lannisters, and who would have thought? Federal court has many tools to address a party's supposed nonfeasance. Self-aggrandizement of its jurisdiction is not one of them. That's a rather big word for an idiot there, Sam Alito. I would chart a different path that the court does today, so I must respectfully dissent. You might do so respectfully, but you're not doing so intelligently, despite the fact that you're trying to use a couple of $20 words to try and make yourself look smart, because nothing you do can actually make you look smart, Sam Alito. And we've seen that now with this dissent. We've seen it in Dobbs v. Jackson. We've seen it in Burrell versus Hobby Lobby. We've seen it in Salinas v. Texas. We've seen it in Lilly Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire. How many bad rulings does one have to author before one gets yeeted off the Supreme Court? Let me know in the comments how many more bad rulings or bad dissents that Justice Alito should be able to make before we say this is enough is enough, let's get him off the court. Agree with me, disagree with me, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and of course, unless you're a Nazi or like Sam Alito, have a good day. There we go. Oh, Joe's in the chat. We do not have a representative democracy. Let me record this little rant. No, this is, you get this, Joe. You're getting this. This is unplanned, but thank you for saying that, Joe. Joe in the chat says, Dan, we do not have a representative democracy. Do you complain when President Trump talks about the fact that we're returning democracy to America, like he said last night? When people who are Republican politicians, conservative politicians, MAGA politicians talk about the whole, they'll say, oh, when Democrats talk, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic. But then when Republicans say it, y'all are silent. Y'all don't say a peep. When Trump says it. Trump said it last night. We're a democracy. We're returning democracy to America. That's what he said. Something similar. Did you sit there and say, Donald Trump is wrong. We don't have a democracy. To say that we're not a representative democracy and otherwise and say and insist, oh, the Constitution says that we're a republic. A republic is a representative democracy. Like, it's being overly and needlessly pedantic. And unlike me, you can't put the Dan in pedantic. So, yeah. The idea that we don't live in a representative democracy is just one of the many lies that conservatives say. We do live in a representative democracy. We absolutely do. Just because the Constitution says republic doesn't change the fact that a republic is a representative democracy. We democratically elect the people who serve in Congress. We democratically elect the House representatives, the senatorial representatives. We even democratically elect the electors to the Electoral College. Even if the Electoral College is less democratic than what we would like it to be here over on the left. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with Joe in the chat that we are that we are not a representative democracy? Or do you understand the facts that a republic is a representative democracy? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. And of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. Unplanned fat man rant. There you go. Apparently Joe's not from around these parts. I think Joe, if I'm correct, is from North Carolina. So Joe is from at least around some people's parts. Although some people might not want Joe anywhere near their parts. But then again, whatever.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Democracy is never intended by the founders or vision of the Constitution. Well, so how did they, when they voted for their representation, what happened then? Did they not elect their representatives democratically? I mean, I understand they didn't do it democratically because they didn't allow everybody to vote. It was only white men at the time who voted, and so women couldn't vote, and black people couldn't vote, and you basically just had to be a white dude, and white Christian man at that. So yeah, maybe they didn't intend for everybody to vote, and therefore it wasn't a representative democracy. But a republic is a let's do this. Republic, a state in which the supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives, which has an elected or nominated president rather than a monarch. So, and how are those people elected? Democratically! Now, granted, the districts aren't drawn democratically. The districts are gerrymandered to give certain minority parties undue weight in the Congress, let alone the Senate. Yeah, we are a republic, but a republic is a representative democracy. Simple as that. There's no need to say anything else. A republic is a representative democracy, full stop. Yeah, a constitutional republic with democratic elections. Will this ever be Alton Gillespie? Will this ever be a decent nation again? I don't know. Donald Trump last night did say that he'll never be able to do anything that the Democrats would agree with or support. And that's false. That's a false statement, because I guarantee you there's one thing that Donald Trump could do that would get every Democrat on board. Resign. We would all applaud that decision. Herr Trump. Let's see. Let's scroll back and see what else I missed, because while I was ranting about talking about the Supreme Court ruling, we did have a lot of comments that I didn't get. Bill, I'm calling in. Give me a few minutes to take my meds. The lines aren't open yet, but we will let you have. We will open up the phone lines in a second and allow you to give a call. Someone did call me at 10:09 a.m. on Tuesday. Interesting. I wonder what that call says. Maybe I'll have to. I don't know. Is that it's not a voicemail, but it's a call. I don't know who we missed. Cynthia from Texas. Howdy, Liberal Dan and Danimals. Love from Texas. Thank you for joining, Cynthia. Appreciate you. See, Steve, I think we're all waiting for for him to refuse to follow a court order and say, what you gonna do? Yeah, and I talked about that last night. I've talked about that several times. We have a situation where throughout the history, mostly at least throughout the history of our nation, that we have people in the office of president who understood that we have three co-equal branches of government that have checks and balances on the other one. And I don't think we've seen any major examples of presidents going up against the court and saying, well, the court ruled this, I disagree with it, I'm just not going to follow it. And I think we could very well see that. And if it ever did happen, it's going to be minor compared to what I predict that Donald Trump's going to be doing sometime soon, which is just fully not going along with what the courts say and just doing his own thing and testing and basically saying, hey, what are you going to do? And what would we do if the Supreme Court itself says that we cannot lock up people who are president? The Supreme Court says that presidents have full immunity and you can't subpoena any communications because they're considered privileged. So if the Supreme Court has already said that, why should then Donald Trump listen to anything that the court says? Except for the fact that if he would want to follow the traditions of this country, which is to accept that we have three co-equal branches of government. But we all know Trump won't do that, because Donald Trump said wanted to be dictator on day one. He proclaimed himself king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
So if he proclaimed himself king,
Well, I didn't vote for you.
then why on earth would he listen to any of the courts and whatever the courts or Congress has to say? A king doesn't have co-equal branches to share the power with. Take that into consideration, anybody who might disagree with me. Let's see. Did anyone have huge wins today? I mean, from the outside, not for what you had for lunch. We had huge wins yesterday. And, 500 billion, Joe says, in fraud and waste. Here's the deal, Joe. 500 in fraud and waste. I don't believe it. It's already been shown that Elon Musk has had incorrect information on the Doge website. There's already been proven to be incorrect information there. I have no reason to take Elon Musk or President Donald Trump at face value for anything that they say, period. Why would I believe that that the number is 500 billion, and why would I believe that it's fraud or waste? W-A-S-T-E. Not the waist that you have a belt around. But, you know. Wait, so does NOA now come from Canada? Probably. Yeah, millions of condoms for Africa. Hey, at least you get the condoms for Africa right. I will give Joe a slight amount of credit for correctly saying that the condoms were to be spent, or the money to be spent in helping the reduction of STI transmission was done in Mozambique, Africa, and not in Gaza, i.e. where the Palestinians live on the Mediterranean Sea. But why is giving out condoms to Africa a crime? I don't understand that idea. Why is it that spending money on condoms to help prevent the spread of HIV in Africa, which is a huge problem, it's huge. Why is that a crime? You may disagree with it. You may have no problem with people in Africa dying of HIV or AIDS. You might not have a problem with that. I mean, that's up to you and your conscience and your morals. ultimately, if you believe in a deity, that deity is going to judge you at the end of the day for those thoughts. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. However, the idea that it's a crime is absurd. Let's see. How can anyone justify the spending that has not been identified? How can anybody justify cutting things that haven't been identified? How can you justify random hacking and slashing just for the sake of hacking or slashing, not looking at who it hurts, not looking at the harm is done? Again, Donald Trump said during the pandemic, I disagreed with him then, but the point is solid. I disagreed with him over the implementation of that. He said, the cure can't be worse than the disease. Well, if these cuts happen, the cure may very well be worse than the disease. How many people are going to be, who are veterans to this country, are going to be hurt because Doge has decided to cut 20% of the VA workforce? And by consolidating, to me, that automatically says, because I've seen how Republicans consolidate funding for healthcare in the past, again, that means the shutting down of clinics and putting those centers at a more centralized location, which means the people in rural areas are going to be harder hit. And who lives in the rural areas, Joe? Who lives in those rural areas? Is it Democrats? No. It's mostly Republicans, conservatives. Those are the people who are going to get harmed by these cuts. And veterans. You want veterans getting, cut? Having their aid cut? Veterans need more assistance, not less. TV2 Live's in the chat. Good to see you, TV2 Live. Thank you. Last year, you argued states had no rights. Now states have immunity. What? Where am I arguing that states have immunity? I'm not quite sure where I made that argument. You might have to explain that one to me there, Joe. Yeah, states don't have rights. States have powers. People have rights. That's clear. That's the 9th Amendment and 10th Amendment. People have rights. People have, in the 9th Amendment, have unenumerated rights, non-enumerated rights. There are rights that are not enumerated in the Constitution that people still have. And government is not allowed to trample, shouldn't be allowed to trample over those non-enumerated rights, just as government shouldn't be able to trample over the enumerated rights. But I've never said that states don't have powers. I'm just wondering why you're saying that I think states have immunity, and what immunity are you suggesting that I'm saying that states have? Yeah, Kelly. Alito, bought and paid for, follow the money. Exactly. Let's see. I have no clue, but our tax dollars should not be spent to foreign countries for condoms. Why? Why shouldn't we spend some money for the betterment of the overall humanity? If we can get less people with HIV, that's less people dying of HIV and AIDS and other HIV/AIDS related causes. And I don't necessarily agree with everything where our tax money goes, but I don't necessarily have to agree with everything where our tax money goes. You have to accept that as part of living in a representative democracy as we live in, i.e. a republic, that you're going to not agree with everything that the Congress passes. But you, as somebody who supposedly believes in the Constitution, should agree with the idea that if you have the power of the purse, which belongs to Congress, the House of Representatives specifically, the House of Representatives passes a budget which includes expenditures, and the president then signs that budget, then those are now expenditures that are required. And again, if the expenditures are required, like they were with Biden, when Biden tried to say that he didn't feel like building the wall, the court said, nope, sorry, you have to build the wall. These are funds that Congress specifically appropriated for wall building. He had no choice. So why are you then arguing that Donald Trump has the choice? If Donald Trump had the choice, then so should Biden have had the choice. Let's see. MAGA has the understanding of a rock for foreign policy. Can't simply understand we send extra surplus that has been grown and produced whatever we pay our farmers and companies for the goods. I was about to say, Joe had written, we are a Republican form of government. I was like, I mean, Are you suggesting that Donald Trump is king and that we have a former government? But no, I guess he meant form of government instead of former government. So, Jeff Curry, when I was a banker, as soon as someone mentioned the word bankrupt, I had to kick them out. I felt bad. Damn, I wish Don Dunn would have sat there. Exactly. Yeah, Bill P. Remember what Jefferson said about the Tree of Liberty? I do remember what they. I mean, conservatives during the Tea Party movement often talked about what needed to happen to the Tree of Liberty. Kimchi, sorry, daughter needed me. We need you too, Kimchi. No, I'm just kidding. Always help your family first. Family is more important than my little show. Let's see. Kimchi used the word this weekend. I like using pedantic. I also like saying that I often put the Dan in pedantic, and I do think I am pedantic when it comes to the wording of the 10th Amendment. That's for darn sure. I do agree. I will agree with that comment, but overly pedantic is claiming that we're not a democracy, we're a republic, when a republic is a representative democracy. And hypocrisy is, of course, not yelling at Trump when Trump says that we're a democracy, but yet yelling at Democrats when we say we're a democracy. We have democratic principles in this nation. Lots of things are decided in democratic ways, and other things are decided by the representatives that we elect democratically. So, Putin says cheaper to prevent the spread than to pay for the treatment. Exactly. It's one of the reasons why, back when I ran for Congress in 2004, part of my plan was to propose a sort of a plan that would cover all preventive care, because if you could get preventive care covered at 100% first dollar, you'd be less likely to have to abuse the emergency room to deal with your issues. Of course, unfortunately, one of the issues that is going on currently in our healthcare system is that we don't have enough doctors to deal with certain issues, and as such, one might have to deal with a potential kidney stone issue, and you have to wait for the kidney stone to become an emergency and be absolutely painful to have it be dealt with. Otherwise, you have to wait 2 months for your urologist to see you. I know this from personal experience from the last few weeks. So, what did Jeff say? Kimchi, Steve has no sense of humor. Just because he lives over in Scotland and I guess is part of, that area, doesn't mean that there's no sense of humor. Come on. Yeah. Besides, we all know.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
Right? So. Aaron, I don't lie. Jeff, that's another lie. Y'all are having way too much fun. No, that's not. You can't have way too much fun. That's not true. Anyway, Evie's over on Twitch. We are a democratic constitutional republic. Exactly. So, what else was I going to discuss? Ooh, this should be something that is that should be fun for Joe to deal with. I don't know if I've recorded this before. I'm covering the chat right now with this so I could read it better and actually be looking in the camera because I have a pre-written rant. That being said, I will get back to the comments in a second, but the last thing was an unplanned fat man rant. This is a planned fat man rant. There's been a lot of conversation going on about, trans folk and Donald Trump wanted to pass, a bill in the Senate, and all the Democrats voted against the bill in the Senate to keep trans women out of, women's sports. And I'm not going to say it the other way, because trans women are women, and if you refuse to consider that trans women are women, then you're telling us that your problem right now is not with fairness or safety of the women in women's sports. Because you're refusing to refer to trans women as women, you're just proving yourself to be overly cruel, and you're proving yourself to have no concern about the actual safety of people. If you're concerned about the safety of people, you would understand certain things about what happens to trans folk when you enact harmful policies that specifically target them to treat them differently than the gender that they are instead of the gender that's on their birth certificate. But when it comes to trans athletes, there's no real evidence out there to show that trans athletes as a whole have any real advantage over the cisgender women in those same sports. However, if a young trans woman who is an athlete would have any advantage competing at a high school level against other cis athletes, the odds that your cisgender daughter is going to miss out on some scholarship because of somebody trans competing against them, the odds of that happening are slim to none. First of all, young boys are never going to want to pretend to be women to just get ahead. Toxic masculinity and transphobia makes it hard enough for trans women to come out of the closet. You think a young cisgender man is going to want to deal with all that just to get ahead in sports? Of course not. They're not going to want to do that. And also, young men and young women don't have the same number of hormones. Are we going to weed out cis women with unusually high testosterone levels because it's unfair to the other women too? We could manufacture any number of things that might give some folks an unfair advantage in getting sports scholarships. What about parents who have the time and money to get their kids special trainers? You know, isn't that unfair to the children whose parents can't afford that or who don't have the time to give them extra training for the sports that they want to participate in? What about children with health issues, like maybe like hyper or hypothyroidism, that might predispose them to being overweight? Isn't that unfair to them that they can't compete for these sports-related scholarships? It seems to me like we are absolutely cherry-picking fairness. And that's what we're doing. We're cherry-picking what's fair and what's not in order to justify the culture war of it using government to attack trans people. Furthermore, there was an article that I had read on this that basically said that there was a young woman who finished in 8th place and missed like making the finals or making some statewide event or whatever by 2 spots. 5 other cis women finished better than she did. So what was her excuse for not beating them? If she would have beaten them, she would have gotten into the next level or the scholarship or whatever it is she was trying to compete for. And maybe the issue here is that we shouldn't be forcing kids to have to rely on athletics to further their education or to succeed at life. Let sports be done for the sake of sports, and don't make kids stress over whether or not they're going to be able to get a good education simply because, you know, they were able to participate in a sport or not. Furthermore, there are studies that have shown that for each person who accepts a young trans person for who they are, that person is 50% less likely to commit suicide. So I think protecting the lives of trans folk is much more important than the idea that little Sally might miss out on some sort of college scholarship. And again, if you're somebody who's unwilling to like use somebody's proper pronouns, if you're somebody who mocks pronoun use altogether, if you're somebody who, you know, is against, you know, trans people using the bathroom that they would more likely fit in than the other restroom, if you're somebody who's taking any other steps when it comes to trans issues, if you're making the false argument that there are children out there who are being having their genitals changed or whatever simply because of the fact that they think that they're trans or they're saying that they're trans, no gender reassignment surgery, no bottom surgery is being done on any kids ever. There may be clinics that do operations down there. That's only to fix issues with like injury and stuff like that. So if you're making those things your issue as well, your problem is not with sports. Your problem is with trans people, and you're being a bigot. And you're just using these young women who participate in sports to push your anti-trans culture war BS. You agree with me? Disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi or a transphobe, have a good day. End scene. Go back to the main scene. And we can go back to the other thing as well. The main show background. Wow, Liberal Dan, what a novel idea. Yes, what a novel idea to allow people to, you know, progress further in life and not have to rely on sports to do so. Right? Perhaps if higher education were available to more people, well, I mean, Donald Trump did say he loved the poorly educated, and the poorly educated constantly try and prove that they're still worthy of that love. So, let's see. Maybe Joe will volunteer in West Texas and New Mexico with the measles outbreak since Musk fired the CDC workers. Pretty much. I mean, you laugh because, you know, but it's not really funny. Because people are now... To have a child die of measles in 2025 is absurd. People should not be dying of measles in this country. But we've allowed people who are anti-science, anti-vaccine, to just have their way. We've given them the keys to the government. And this is causing real harm to real people because there are some dumb parents out there who believe bullshit like, oh, if you just take more vitamin A, you don't need vaccines. No, if you take too much vitamin A, it's poisonous to you, A. B, vitamin A doesn't stop the measles. You know what stops the measles? The measles vaccine. Period, end of story. We've solved that problem as a country. We solved that problem almost globally. Wherever, at least wherever people have access to the MMR vaccine, we have solved that problem. And now the conservatives are trying to reopen that problem. MAGA, anti-science folks, even silly little RFK Jr., or as the Republicans or MAGA folks are now calling him, RFKJ, they're now reopening Pandora's box. They're now putting people at risk because of their anti-science crap. Let's see. Joe is angry because the house dropped on his mama in Kansas. No, the house that dropped on his mama was in Oz, not in Kansas. The house came from Kansas and dropped in Oz. Sorry. Hate to be overly pedantic. I don't know if that's pedantic or not. That's just nitpicky. Let's see. My daughter's class said she had the deepest voice in her class. Even with boys, she did. I went to sub and saw it. Biden had 4 years to fix the educational system, Dan. What? I mean, Biden tried. I mean, Democrats have absolutely, Joe, tried to make it so that we could get, available, affordable college education for everybody. But who stood in their way? Republicans have stood in their way. Joe Biden tried to make it better for people who are under student loan repayment. And for some reason, the Supreme Court gave Missouri standing because Missouri has MOHELA, and MOHELA processes student loans. And even though MOHELA is not an official government company, it's a non-governmental organization that was created by the government to process and handle student loan repayment crap. But for some reason, and MOHELA didn't even want to participate in the lawsuit. The state of Missouri had to subpoena MOHELA for the files that they needed to be able to bring their suit. But for some reason, they were given standing. They were said to have standing when they never should have had standing in that case. And the reason why MOHELA and Missouri and as such the other states were given standing should piss you off, Joe. The reason that MOHELA argued that Missouri argued that they should be able to sue is because they would suffer harm if MOHELA lost student loans because they were forgiven early. Basically, Missouri is saying that they have the right to your tax dollars, that they're going to lose your tax dollars, the processing fees that they collect to handle these loans, that they're going to lose taxpayer money. They feel entitled to your money, Joe. How are you not mad at that? How are you not mad at the idea that state governments think that they're entitled to your tax dollars? And that the only reason that loans shouldn't be forgiven is because they're going to lose out on funds going into their state. How is that not BS to you? Or to any conservative whatsoever? Excuse me. See, Scots folk make up swear words as we go along, yet we all know what they mean. It's an instinct, some might say a talent.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
Exactly. But there are too many people with the condom thing. There are probably too many people who watched Howie Mandel as a kid and think that condoms are for just putting over your head and blowing up a balloon. I mean, that was a funny thing, but, You went through Mahila. I still am through Mahila. Technically, the Mahila website is through the Department of Education website, but I'm absolutely concerned. Let's see. I'm more mad about my tax dollars being spent overseas. Are you now? Why? Why are you more mad about that? What makes that more what makes that more mad? What makes you more mad about that? Words are apparently problematic for me today. It's probably because I'm just exhausted from the last like few weeks and months or whatever. But you know, again, that doesn't make any sense to be more mad about that. You're more mad about helping people avoid getting disease than you are about a state feeling that it's entitled to your tax dollars. It doesn't make sense to me. That makes no sense whatsoever. Even Putin. See, you are not, Joe, you are more into an ideology than fiscally conservative spending. Pretty much. Anyway, this might be a mistake. But I know we did say that, I don't know if he's gone or whatever, but I think we had at least, I think Bill said that he wanted to call in. So let's go ahead. We're going to mute this. We're going to put that up there. We're going to put off the do not disturb. And we are opening up the phone lines. 562-LIBDAN1, 562-LIBDAN1, 562-542-3261. If you want to call the Liberal Dan Radio program, you call in. The Google will ask you to say what your name is. Say your name, say your name. And we'll be able to, have a conversation about, what's going on and what we've discussed today. Whether or not you agree or disagree with Herr Donald, etc. Just go ahead. Give us a call in. 562-542-3261. See, Kelly, at my holiday dinner, my anti-vax sister, an effing doctor, said no big deal, get and go on. My guy, youngest of 11, had one brother rendered sterile, another deaf in one ear due to measles. Silliness. And that's silly that we want to stop that. There was a doctor that my wife actually dealt with on her first trip to the emergency room over here in West Jeff Hospital. That doctor posted a video on TikTok, I think it was, about how you shouldn't need vaccines to avoid disease. You should live a healthy diet, have a healthy diet, and eat right and take the proper vitamins, and you can avoid getting sick, and you don't need to take vaccines if you have a healthy life. That doctor was since fired, thankfully. But that doctor also was like asking my wife, why are you here? I'm like, why do you think she's here? Because she's sick, you dumbass. It's like, was it Ben Carson? Brilliant brain surgeon, dumb at everything else. So there are many people who think use all of their brain power into one task, and then they forget how to do anything else. I'm surprised they know how to wipe their butts properly. He is a smart doctor. He is a fired doctor. How smart is it to make something that you know is going to get yourself canned? Yeah. RFK thinks healthy people won't get diseases like measles, blatantly false and misinformation, for example. Exactly. And not only does he think that healthy people won't get measles, he thinks that vitamin A will stop you from getting measles. That is, nothing could be further from the truth. Yeah. Many diseases don't care whether or not you are healthy or not. Exactly, Putin. Never thought I'd say I'd be agreeing with Putin on the show, but I'm agreeing with Putin, at least the user with the name Putin on the channel. See, is there a pub and beer involved, Highlander? There may be a pub that's related to Highlander, but if they want to be consistent, there should only be one. Right? It's a Scotsman, an Englishman, and a Canadian walked into Liberal Dan's place. I'll think of the rest before next week. The Scotsman said, well, I can't play this now. The Scotsman said,
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
See, I don't think anyone needs to be the subject of my thoughts. I don't know. I like some of your thoughts, Jeff. You suggest dirty minds. We may share a brain, similar dirty minds. See, TV has many hours of streams talking to Putin - me. Nice. TV2 Live, right? See, what else did I miss if I need to scroll up to see? While we wait for the calls, 562 LibDan1, 562-542-3261 is the call-in number. I'd call in, but I'd waste time hitting on Dan. I think I do remember Putin, actually. I do remember you from TV2 live streams. So yes, I do remember that. I just like saying that I'm agreeing with Putin because it's funny. No one. I'm sure there are plenty of people who might want to hear that impeccable living, but it's just a matter of whether or not it would be good for the show or not. And it might be better when I do Liberal Dan After Dark, when that's a sometime in the future plan. But if I ever do the extra channel Liberal Dan After Dark, maybe that would be appropriate for that too. So I'm the good Putin. Vlad is bad. Exactly. I agree with you 1,000%. So. Now, apparently nobody wants to call in. 562-542-3261, 562-LibDan1. So, at least I didn't have to pay for the number, and at least I was able to come up with a solution that's different from Blog Talk Radio, right? Do we have a number? Oh, we do have a number. We do have somebody calling in. Let's answer and see who it is. There we go. Let's accept Bill's call. Hello, Bill. What's going on? How are you today?
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm doing as well as can be expecting under the dumpster fire that is the Trump administration, so.
Well, I just couldn't stomach that, whatever you call that happened last night. It was just too much.
Well, I've been calling it the Pettysburg Address, so if that catches on, that people have to make sure that I get credit for it, but I think it's clever to call it the Pettysburg Address, so. Anyway. But yeah, it's understandable that many people couldn't watch, and that's one of the silly things about the whole. People were there again. They were citing some polls or whatever, saying that a vast majority of quote Americans agreed with what Donald Trump had to say last night. No, it's a vast majority of people who were watching it at the time who might agreed with it. But I'm sure a vast majority of the people who were watching it were all of the people who are the MAGA folks who would have liked anything that Donald Trump said, regardless of if he said it. Donald Trump could have said, "We're handing over the keys to the White House to Vladimir Putin, das vidanya," and they would be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea," because they don't like this country, they hate America, they hate the Constitution, and they want, they have no problem with us bending over backwards or forwards for the desires and needs of Vladimir Putin. So,
yeah, I mean, what's happening right now is totally, it's past the forgiveness point. After watching the fiasco in the Oval Office with Zelensky, the way he was treated, eyeliner Vance, I'm a boy Vance. Just the whole thing is just insane.
Right. I had to do I've done 2 special episodes of Liberal Dan Radio so far in the past week, simply because of the fact that we had to cover things. We had to cover Donald Trump's embarrassing actions in the White House with Zelensky, and the fact that, Zelensky had those 2 looks that just were like epic. And if you haven't seen my commentary on those looks, they're on my channel. Go look. And also the, last night's, Pettysburg Address. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back and watch them. I was busy all day with the class, and I had to deal with the whole class full of Joes today.
God. What were you teaching? What were you teaching? Or
theology.
Ah, interesting. And they were fighting back because they didn't think that Donald Trump was anti-Christian or something, because
they don't want to give money to foreign countries outside of America. And I told them, I was only stationed in 6 different countries while I was in the military. What in the hell are you talking about?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we, as supposedly we're the most powerful nation in the world. I think that's technically still true militarily wise, but brain power wise, that's definitely up to question. But yeah, we've done many good things on a global scale because we've used America's global might for global good. Now we're stopping that because Donald Trump wants to shake out the couch and get all the loose change and shove it in his and Elon's pockets. So,
right. and I had to educate them too about the products that we get from Canada, or we purchase from Canada, or we trade with Canada. They don't understand that about 40% of the electricity north of the Mason-Dixon line comes from Canada, across the country. They don't understand that about 55% of the gasoline that goes in vehicles in the lower 48 comes from Canada. They don't understand that 80% of the fertilizer that our farmers use comes from Canada. How are they going to grow crops with no fertilizer? We're going to have another dust bowl.
Facts don't care about their feelings, but their feelings don't care about the facts either, right?
Right?
So yeah,
it's kind of like talking.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's like talking to an anvil.
That's pretty spot on. I mean, you know, they insist on just, but there's, I would love to say, like, the one conservative talk show I listen to regularly, like, I bring up the fact that they're unwilling to criticize him, and he'll, the guy will insist that he will criticize Trump, but I've yet to see any real criticism of Donald Trump from anybody. The closest they've came is their whining about the fact that, oh, we haven't seen enough of the Epstein files enough, or we haven't seen the JFK files yet. They've not worked fast on that. But even some of his guests will be like, you just have to be patient and let him come out with it. And clearly the reason why we have to wait to see the Epstein files is I'm sure the FBI and the Department of Justice have to redact all of Donald Trump's information on there. Trade out Donald Trump's name for other people to let people know, be fooled in the fact that, Donald Trump wasn't good buddies with Epstein, despite the fact that pictures show otherwise.
Right. And the confirmation bias is so strong in these people. It's unreal. And they all
unfortunately many of them won't understand. Unfortunately, many of them won't understand the idea of confirmation bias because confirmation is too many syllables for them.
Right. But I just don't know what the hell some of these people are thinking. I really don't.
I mean, it's bold. It's bold of you. It's bold of you to think that they think. I don't think a lot of these people use much of their brain power for this sort of stuff. A lot of these people just follow along like lemmings, and that they would follow Trump off the cliff like lemmings because they're lemmings. Of course, if you say that on Facebook, that'll give you a 3-day Facebook prison sentence because how dare you call conservatives an animal name? But whenever anytime a conservative calls me an animal name, Facebook never pulls it because, again, it's the double standard of the left versus right. The people on the left are expected to and are required to be 100% perfect. And the moment we're not 100% perfect by their eyes, we're shunned and ridiculed. But when conservatives do it, it's like, oh, it's just them being them. Just boys being boys. Just MAGA folks being MAGA folks. So...
Yeah, an attorney friend of mine was talking today. Like I told him, I didn't watch the speech. I can't stand to hear his voice. But he was telling me that at the end of the speech last night, Trump threw Musk under the bus. He said that Musk is running Doge. That could be some really serious legal problems for Musk down the road. When Trump is dead and gone, remember what Liz Cheney said about when Trump's gone, what's going to be left behind for them? Musk is going to have some real problems.
Yeah. And, I mean, and the other thing, like, I don't understand, like, Donald Trump is very anti-electric car. Well, isn't Musk very pro-electric car? How are they squaring that circle? I guarantee you that they're going to figure out some way to justify, being against electric vehicles, except for Teslas. Like, it's bizarre.
Oh yeah, they tried to do that. They tried to do that electric truck, that armored electric truck deal. I mean, good grief! I mean, just right out in front of you.
Yeah.
And Trump rants on about windmills and about solar panels. And then they turn around and try to beef up the contract with Musk from, what was it, 40,000 or 400,000 to hundreds of millions for the solar trucks. I mean, just insane.
Well, I'm convinced that Donald Trump is going to try and help Musk become the world's first actual trillionaire. He's gonna and he's gonna do so off the backs of the American taxpayer and American government, and he'll find some way to get rich off of it as well. He'll find some way to leech off of that trillionaire as well. I mean, no person would be able to spend $1 billion in their lifetime. It would be very difficult for them to be able to do so. You and me wouldn't ever do it. Let alone $1 trillion. It's just that amount of wealth hoarding is just absurd. And I'm just wondering, like we were talking on the show the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday or Monday that we were discussing the topic of, because one of the people, I don't know if it was P-Dubs or not, but was saying basically that people should start only spend on necessities and save up their money. And my only thing about that is like maybe it's fair to save to stock up on supplies, like non-perishable food items or whatever, just to deal with a short-term or even a semi-long-term issue with our society. But if we go into a Great Depression and our monetary system collapses because of the top side, because we're so top heavy, putting all of the wealth in so few people, whatever money you save is not going to be worth anything, because again, they're going to devalue the currency so much, because it's going to make our money weak. That's why, one of the reasons why, but there's also other things, other scams that this administration is doing that the conservatives would have a problem with it if it was Democrats doing it, but because it's Trump doing it, they're not going to have a problem. Like creating the whole thing, like the federal cryptocurrency, whatever that he's trying to do, where he's basically trying to have money from our federal government be pumped into cryptocurrency, which all that is going to do is going to inflate the value of like Bitcoin and Dogecoin, or Trump's, whatever Trump coin is going to try and come up with his version of cryptocurrency, whatever it is. It's just going to inflate those, and it's just another pump and dump scam just done by the president in order to enrich himself and enrich the other people who invest in that crap. So
yeah, I mean, I told my students, I said, when I was a kid, in order to rob a bank, you put on a mask and go inside. Now all you do is hit a delete key.
Yeah.
It's all digital.
Yep. And look, I don't have an issue with funds being more electronic. I mean, that's part of, I guess, going into the future is that, but there needs to be safeguards on it. And what safeguards are there when Donald Trump is trying to cut all the safeguards? Like, he's trying to merge the FDIC with other organizations. He's trying to get rid of, he's trying to kill the NOAA, but with splitting up the all of the jobs, as we've talked on a previous podcast. And of course, the stupid fact checkers like, well, it doesn't say exactly that, but the fact checkers don't allow us to actually say, this is fact A, this is fact B, and this is fact C, and this is what the logical result of doing A, B, and C will end up doing. But then we'll get fact checked, because they'll say, oh, well, you said that D is a result of A, B, and C, but Project 2025, for example, never said that they were going to do D. I said duty, haha. But they never said that they were going to actually implement D, so therefore you're lying. You're not being truthful. But no, we're being truthful because we're understanding that A plus B plus C ends up at D. No way around it. But, these so-called fact checkers can't be trusted. It used to be the conservatives that would mock the fact checkers, and we could rely on like PolitiFact and Fact Check and other type of websites to actually give accurate, fact checks on things that people say. But now we can't draw logical conclusions based off of the available things that they say and not have it be deemed as not true. Or you can't even share jokes and have it be deemed as not true. One of my friends shared something about the Ligma variant of the COVID vaccine, because, Ligma is just the beginning of Ligma balls or whatever. And so everyone was passing around this joke about the Ligma variant, and Facebook fact-checked the post. They're like, there is no Ligma variant of COVID-19, blah, 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 blah. Of course there's not. Get with the program. Understand that jokes are jokes. So.
Right. I mean, they also are not for having a sense of humor either.
Well, that's true too. I mean, fortunately we do, but you have to have a sense of humor to survive this Trump administration, because if you don't, you're going to drive yourself crazy. I mean, we still might drive ourselves crazy, but at least we'll laugh while doing so. So,
Well, a friend of mine is a cybersecurity expert. That's what he does for a living. And he recommended that everyone freeze their credit. If you need to get a loan, you can always go unfreeze it for a credit check, but you need to freeze your credit immediately. Because all these gamers that work for Elon Musk got in, they've got your social security number, your address, copies of your birth certificate, your driver's license. They've got it all.
Yeah, and there's no, because they're not officially government employees, they're gonna, there's probably little or no requirements on what actually they can do with what is being shared with them. So,
well, we have to demand. This is something we have to demand. Our party has to demand it. And if they won't carry it out, then we need to get rid of them too. But there have to be checks and balances put in. There have to be security checks put in, where this can never happen again. Never. If it means completely scuttling the Constitution and rewriting the Constitution, so be it. That's the reason I quoted Jefferson earlier.
right.
And that's exactly what Jefferson was talking about. We may have to do that.
That's very well possible. I mean, one of the things I've said a lot of times on the show, especially during the first Trump administration, is that there may very well be a time where our military has to do something like the Egyptian military did, because it becomes, the fact that, you'll end up having a president that's acting in an extra presidential way, i.e. acting like, a king, and we
Well,
don't
I
have
didn't vote
kings.
for you.
So,
Well, General Milley's last speech on his retirement, he spelled it right out. I mean, he just put it right out there for people to see, and they just ignored it. And it just, I don't understand how all these ex-military people and these veterans voted for Trump. I run into so many of them at the VA. It's sickening.
I'm going to be, if when they actually cut the VA services, when they actually get that implemented and done, and the 20% of that workforce is no longer employed, and they close down clinics to consolidate their footprint, I guess, as they call it in the memo, or something similar to that, and these veterans who voted for Trump can no longer get the services they need. I wonder how many of them are gonna realize, oops, we effed up.
Yeah. Well, I have to go to the VA the last Wednesday of this month, so I'll be able to tell you. I'll be able to phone in and give you an updated report on it.
Well, I mean, that absolutely would be nice. I would love to hear that. I mean, I have another friend of mine who also works for the VA is down here as well. So, but having multiple sources at the VA would definitely be a good thing to have. I don't know if we'll see it at the end of this month, though. That's the thing. I don't know when we'll actually see it. It looks like they're actually they're not actually doing it immediately, which is shocking because everything else has been done. Like, don't even measure and make your cut. Like, I've been saying you should measure twice, cut once, but they're not even measuring. They're just cutting all willy-nilly. In this particular case, it does look like they may very well be at least putting up some sort of farce that they're trying to, measure a couple of times before doing anything. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually measuring things before they do it. So, who knows?
Oh, no, it's already started. It's already started. My sister lives in Denver. It's already started at the VA there. She works there. My daughter-in-law and one of my sons work at the VA. It's already started in Kentucky. They've already started laying off the last people in or the first people out the door. And I live in a rural area, and all these rural clinics around here, if they lose one staff member, the clinic will close. It'll just be over.
Were those people who took advantage of the buy-in, or were those people who were the probationary employees who weren't yet protected by civil service?
Both.
Both? Fair enough.
You had some people that took the buyout, and then you had some people that just got a letter in the mail saying adios.
Right.
You got a bad review. See you later.
Right, and I'm sure the 80,000 workforce reduction may very well not include those probationary employees. It may not include those people. Right. It may not include the other people who took the buyouts or whatever. So, it could very well be many more people than just the 20% who are let go or fired or whatever. I mean, if you really want something to be done, if people really believe that you could reduce the workforce overall in the VA and still have improved outcomes from reducing those unnecessary, people or whatever, from the unnecessary positions, I should say, not unnecessary people. But if you believe that that's possible, it would take a more measured approach. It would take, studying the requirements of each position and seeing if it's really necessary or not, and then probably doing things like, dealing with attrition, working it so that, let people go up till retirement, and then when they retire, just don't fill the position, and make sure that when they retire, that they're training the people to do the job that, they're no longer, that for the position that's no longer going to be in place, training the other people to do so. That's how you do it smartly, but no one's ever accused Donald Trump of being intelligent. I mean, they try and claim,
Right.
they try and claim that he plays three-dimensional chess, but he's probably, playing three-dimensional Pong. It's probably what he's
But
trying
did
to
you
play.
see when Jon Stewart has invited Elon Musk to come on his show and Elon refused the invitation?
Well, of course, because, he's not going to allow himself to be questioned by an intelligent person, right?
No, definitely. Well, the reason Jon Stewart wants him is because John worked so hard to get the PACT Act put in place, to take care of these veterans that just came back from the Gulf Wars, the Afghanistan War. See, in my lifetime, the VA's been caught 3 times, unprepared. Once after Vietnam, once after the first Gulf War, and then after the pullout in 2021. Because they just got a massive number of veterans that came in at one time, and they didn't have the staff to handle that volume.
Right.
And they're going to create that same type of problem with these layoffs because, I mean, it's unreal. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, and
Just,
they're going to do the same thing to many other things. As I said earlier in the show, they're going to do the same thing with unemployment. Unemployment is going to go bankrupt in all of these states because there's going to be so many people who are being laid off at one time by the federal government that these people are going to have to apply for unemployment benefits, and then it's going to just crash the systems. It'll probably crash the systems software-wise. It'll probably crash the system monetarily. These systems will be broken. And again, any money supposedly that is saved by Doge or whatever is going to have to then go to pay off, to bolster up these unemployment systems if they actually bother to do it. And then what money have you actually saved? What efficiencies have you added if you have to throw money at the problem every time you break something? So.
right. Well, the school asked me to invite Cory Booker to come and speak next month. And so I contacted his office. He happened to be there, and I was talking to him, and he was telling me it's already in the works. They're going to cut 50% of the Internal Revenue Service. If they do that, how are they going to collect taxes?
Oh, they'll collect it from the little guys who can't afford the tax attorneys. They'll leverage the little guys, but the big people will get away with it. We've seen that since Bush. So the second Bush administration, I think, George W. Bush worked to reduce the size of the IRS, and the reason they did that is because they wanted to make it harder and harder for the IRS to be able to investigate the millionaires and billionaires who were committing all sorts of tax fraud. Because in order to go after those people, you have to actually put in more effort to be able to find the crimes. But the people have, just like the Confederacy convinced the poor white Southerners to fight for their rights to own slaves, even though they would have never owned slaves. These people are doing the same thing with the IRS. They're basically saying, if one day you get rich, you might be harassed by the IRS too. So you need to agree with us to cut their funding. Or even that, they lie and they'll say, the IRS agents that they're hiring are coming after you specifically, the little person. Just like they lied about the FBI memo that said that, that extremist right-wingers were infiltrating school board meetings and that they should be investigated. And of course, the dumbass MAGA folks basically turned that into they're going to investigate all people at school board meetings, which of course is a bold-faced lie or bald-faced lie or whatever it is. And, but they'll still believe it because Donald Trump, after the 2016 Nevada primary, said he loves the poorly educated. So
Yeah, like you know,
It is what it is.
the Republicans now, there's their latest excuse is they're canceling all the town halls because they're saying the Democrats are paying people to go in and disrupt, and it's not Democrats. All these people are wearing red hats.
Right.
It's their own people coming after them. But you know, there's no I in team, and that's what happened with these Republicans. You know, some of these ignorant people. They voted against their own best interest, and now the leopard's eating their face, and they don't know what to do.
I never thought the leopards would eat my face. I love
Yeah.
that song. But yeah, like,
You know, I'm gonna get off here. I'm about to get off here. It's getting late.
all right. Well, I do appreciate your call. I appreciate your service as well. And hey, if you happen to get on the line with Cory Booker again and you want to tell him to come and be a guest on my show, give him my email address and say, hey, Bill said that I should get on your show. I would definitely love to have many higher up there
Man, I tell you,
Democrats.
he's in demand. Let me tell you, he was telling me he was on 15 different news with 15 different news organizations this weekend. He's worn out.
I'm sure he is. I mean, it must be tiring to be.
You know,
That maybe that's why all the Democrats sat down and only Al Green stood up. Maybe that's because they're exhausted trying to deal with all of this BS that Trump is trying to throw at us. Although it didn't stop Al Green from getting up and being a hero, but I think again more people should have followed the lead of Al Green. You know, holding up signs is cute. Standing up and you know calling out the fascist to his face, that's what's needed. More people to stand up and call Donald Trump out for all of his BS. So. But again, thank you so much again for Bill for calling. You're more than welcome to call on any time. Appreciate you. Again, thank you for your service.
If I see any major changes, I'll call you. I'll call in and let you know, or I'll send you an email.
Yeah, absolutely. liberaldanradio@gmail.com. That's the best way. That's the best way to email me. I don't check it every day, but maybe I should start. But you know, I will definitely see it and respond at some point. So again, thank you so much, Bill, for calling in, and you have a good rest of your night.
Thanks for being there, Dan, and hello to everyone and the Danimals in the audience.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Be safe. Bye.
You too. Bye. All right, that was Bill, real Bill, from calling in as our first caller of the night. Thank you so much again for calling in. Appreciate you. Let's see. Is this still on? Do I have to hang up? There we go. There we go. There's the hang up. So anyway, 562-542-3261, 562-LibDan1 if you want to get in, call, talk to me. If you agree, disagree, come on, we'll talk. Let's see, it's unethical to be a billionaire. That goes for Taylor Swift too. Yeah, absolutely. Now look, there may very well be if you lined up all of the billionaires and you lined up all of them up in one line and said, okay, you know, here's what we're going to do with the billionaires. I would say that Taylor Swift probably belongs somewhere at the end of the line, i.e., if all of the problematic billionaires, Taylor Swift may very well be at the end of the line, like one of the least problematic billionaires out there. It's still unethical to be a billionaire. It's still, like, Dolly Parton is a very wealthy person, and she's not a billionaire because she spends her money, like, making sure that people can read, donating books to places, everything like that. So you can be a popular musician and not be a billionaire and still be damn wealthy and use your money for good things. But a lot of people might, balk at the idea of there being no ethical billionaires, but there are none, because every person who has become a billionaire has become a billionaire simply because of the fact that they paid people sub wages. But we do have another call. Hold on. And our next call is Big Hook from the Great White North. Hey, Big Hook, good to hear from you again. How are you doing tonight?
Yes. Hanging in there. So many things have sort of come to mind lately. I don't know. As Randy Rhodes was alluding to earlier, Trump is now looking at possibly investing in crypto, and in particular, that line that he and Melania are invested in. I mean, and, they said, oh, he's going to Fort Knox to go and make sure the gold is there.
Right.
And it's like, oh, dear Lord.
And he hasn't been yet, as far as I know. He hasn't been, or if he's been, he hasn't said anything. It may very well be that he went. I don't know, and no fanfare is made over it because he went. And unlike Al Capone's vault that Geraldo showed, unlike that, he probably found all the gold that was supposed to be there, and so no news to be made. So therefore, he just made it all hush hush. Who knows? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, we did talk about the crypto thing a little earlier, but it's basically just another pump and dump scam, another scam done by Donald Trump, where they're going to try and pump up crypto coin with money from the treasury so that they can make a whole bunch of money and then sell it. And then when everyone sells, then then the money that we invested as a country goes into the tank because it then falls. And then he'll be like, well, that's the risk with investing or whatever. So
yeah, but here's the other concern that I have. That $5 million citizenship scam that he's trying to run now.
Right.
That would basically invite all the oligarchs to come in and to basically buy up all the foreclosures after Trump completely destroys the economy.
Right.
Like, what could be worse? Russia owning almost all of America's greatest assets as well as the people. And, there is something really, really bad there that gets me because the ulterior motive of evil seems to be in the details. This, the other thing is they can invest in the stock market and they can blow that up and they can,
right.
The amount of carnage that is possible is, unthinkable. I mean, these people could get on the boards of these military factories in the States and then go and steal all the details from there and the schematics and everything else and whatnot. I mean, it's bad enough that the national security apparatus is being dismantled as well as, he deliberately did that declassified email where he listed off a whole whack of the CIA agents and whatnot and basically
right.
blew their covers. I mean, where does this go? Like, he has shown that he is completely irresponsible with all the, the safety that the Americans were supposedly guaranteed. I mean, next thing he's going to start doing is he's going to start sending out how to speak Russian and read Russian booklets too. I mean, it's that bad now. And then the other question is what is he going to do with China? Because as I said earlier in the comments, is he a Manchurian candidate or is he a Russian candidate? Because, the tariffs are going to throw people off, but think about it. The other thing is that the farmers are going to get ruined because China is the biggest buyer of the American food market, and that's going to throw everything into chaos. There isn't anything that he has. Everything he touches turns to crap.
Yep, he has the bullshit touch instead of the Midas touch. He has the bullshit touch. But even with the last term, last night he talked about how the farmers will love him or whatever. Well, the farmers shouldn't have been stupid enough to vote for him in the first place because the last time he was in office, his dumb tariffs almost killed the farmers, and all the money that we brought in supposedly from the Chinese tariffs or whatever, the tariff on those goods, now had to be paid to the farmers because he hurt the farmers. And it's just like Lucy with the football. All these people that keep voting for him think that somehow this time it's going to be different, and they try to kick the ball, and he pulls it away every single time. And you say whose asset he is. I think he's the asset of either the highest bidder or the highest bidders or whoever has the most dirt on him. I think I would really love to see an investigation of all his little scams, all the Trump watch, the NFTs, all the other things that he does that he puts out for sale that aren't campaign finance related, so it doesn't have to be reported to the FEC, but still is a way for foreign interests to send money to him by buying, the concept of a watch, or buying, all of the other BS things that he tried to hawk as a snake oil salesman, because in reality, those things just make it so easier so that rich, wealthy foreign interests can just send him money and influence him without having to go through the normal channels, or any channels that would be allowed, or even if the channels aren't allowed, it still allows them to circumvent those laws and get him money because, oh, we're just buying a watch. Oh, we're just buying an NFT. Oh, we're just buying this giant golden piece of crap. And then, oh,
Yeah,
well, I sent you those. I paid millions of dollars for your watches. Now now do what I wanted you to do. And he'd be like, okay, I'll do it. So.
But this is the thing. I mean, it's the lowest common denominator.
Hold on, wait something.
Involved.
I have to respond to Impeccable Living, who just said something dirty in chat.
Oh my.
There you go. Anyway, go ahead. I played the oh my sound. I don't know if you could hear it, but
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But Trump is the lowest common denominator. Everything that goes wrong, everything that has fingerprints of criminality involved, has Trump all over it. I mean,
Right.
It was Deutsche Bank from the beginning, and the Russians were there. Oh, gee, funny, isn't it, how the Russians guaranteed all of the loans and didn't require him to pay back when they demanded it of him once. And he went and turned around and sued them, and it was like, oh no, we'll just forgive his loans. And it's like, where in the real world does that ever happen? It's
third world countries.
yeah, well, exactly. And this is the thing. This is like what gets me is that the Republicans at this point, or it's like a game of Clue. It's a murder mystery of the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, the butler did it. No, the butler didn't do it because the middle class doesn't have butlers. What's going to kill? What contributed to the murder? Oh, gee, we cut Social Security, we cut the Medicare, we cut the Medicaid, we decided that you guys can pony up money so that way the billionaires can have a $5 trillion tax cut, which in the end is going to cost another $20 trillion over 10 years. I mean, this is madness. This is madness on steroids. And the thing is that are we going to wake up in time before it's too late? It's very, very worrying. It really is, because I mean, it's going to affect Canada. And I mean, we're your greatest trading partner outside of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mexico provides you most of the fruits and vegetables that you guys eat. And then Canada provides a lot of the grain alongside of the stuff that you guys produce there in the U.S. But, without the potash, which we have in Saskatchewan, none of that would be possible. And then
Right.
on top of that, we have been, very cautiously and selectively cutting down lumber and stuff and selling it to you, and he's going to go and close all the national parks, and he's going to cut all the trees there, and then you're going to be left with, as the last caller said, you're going to be having a dust bowl. I mean, it's, like the consequences of doing things without thinking what the consequences are is what comes to mind here. Like, he is so stupid. He just thinks, I want this, and he doesn't think of who it hurts and whatnot. He just does shit without thinking. And
yeah, I mean,
that's
a
the
lot of
thing.
times, he's said, in the past, I remember him saying something like, for every one new regulation will have will cut 2 or cut 4. He's now upped that number to 10, as if, adding a new regulation would have anything to do with whether or not another regulation should be cut. But these people think that cutting anything is good. I mean, if you're cutting the budget, it's good. If you're cutting regulations, it's good. They're always going to think it's good, regardless of what the actual regulation says or does. The regulation could be, don't poison your drinking water, and they'll be sitting there drinking brown water like, oh, this is great, this is fine, because they will justify anything he does, because in order for them to not do so, they would have to do something that's a sin to the MAGA type conservatives. They'd have to admit that they were wrong. And many of them won't do that. So,
but that's the thing. That's what gets me. They shoot themselves in the foot, and then they go, "Oh, I'll learn to live with it." It's like, hello, you just shot your foot off, for Christ's sake. The gangrene is going to set in, and eventually it's going to kill you. At some point in time, you got to wake up to the facts. And we used to say, "Oh, kids should be seen and not heard from." And the Republicans represent the kids because they have the craziest, stupidest ideas, and they haven't been sent to school, and their reading level is at a 4th and 5th grade level, and they get all their information from right-wing radio and Fox News. It's the stupidest generation of, fuck-ups that America has ever produced. I mean, they're spitting on their parents' graves who fought fascism from World War II and gave you the greatest society ever possible. And FDR left you a legacy where the middle class was thriving and growing and doing all sorts of wonderful things, and you guys fucked it all up. You went and you voted Reagan in, who should have gone to jail. You voted in Nixon, who should have gone to jail. Both Bushes and Trump should have gone to jail. And Trump is the most obvious of all, which is sad, because if you can't see it through Trump, you're never going to see it.
Nope, they're not.
And this is what makes me mad. You can't, if you can't see this obvious stuff, then you got shit in your eyes or shit in your brains. I don't know which. You decide.
Probably both.
And I'm sure a lot of people here in this chat are thinking the same thing as I am. When does it stop? When do these people wake up and decide enough is enough? Next you're going to be putting Band-Aids on bullet holes in your side. This is what it's going to come down to. There is so much that is wrong with the world, and so much that we are capable of fixing with cooperation through allies and everything else. And Trump has thrown it all away. The allies know that they can't trust him. They know that he's going to give any security details he's learned about our allies to Putin, which means that Europe is on the chopping block.
Yep.
So where do we go with this? Ukraine is certainly doing an admirable job because they're teaching us how to defeat Russia on the battlefield. And that alone is worth everything that we've sent to them.
Yeah.
Because they aren't human. They rape, they pillage, they cut off women's breasts in Africa. There isn't anything that they are not capable of doing in the name of evil, because they think that they are white supremacist, Russian, thinking people. They think that they are better than everyone else and that they deserve everything else that other people have thought of and made possible for themselves as well as the rest of the world. And this is the thing. It's just like China. China goes and steals all of our intellectual property and does things. And, and we have been failing for the last, 40 years. The UN has looked the other way. We give Russia and China veto votes so that way nothing happens. and there are no consequences. And now Taiwan is, I can't imagine what the people in Taiwan are thinking.
Oh, they're probably shitting their pants enough that they'll have enough fertilizer to send us if we don't have the Canadian fertilizer.
Well,
But,
like I said, I don't know. This is
it's messed up. It's absolutely messed up, and you can't count on the Republicans to do anything.
This is a Fast and Furious movie of the worst sort.
Yep.
You know, it alarms me, and you know, the courts are doing what they can, and the Democrat AGs are doing what they can by trying to slow it all down and everything else. But you know, can we fix this or survive this through vote? That's a question I am really worried about.
I don't know, because part of the problem is like you're not going to, all of the people who are like common sense Republicans were either primaried or decided that they didn't want to get primaried and just resigned before they had the chance to get primaried, because one of the problems with the Republican Party today and why Trump has been able to grab hold is that, you know, you don't have everybody in the Republican Party you don't have everyone as, quote, MAGA, but you have enough people who are MAGA so that if you don't go with Trump, then those MAGA folks are going to vote with somebody else, and they're going to put in the MAGA people who are going to do Trump's bidding. So the ability to stand up and fight against Donald Trump is never going to come from the right. Unfortunately, there were too many people on the left last night who were sitting down and only doing silent protests or only waving their little signs, and not enough people were like Al Green, who, you know, did what we all need to do to loudly stand up and call out the fascist liar every time he tells a lie, which, you know, is almost every single thing he says. You know, if he, you know, said something, you know, I can't even think of anything that he said ever that's truthful. Like, it's been a while.
Well, that's just it. That's just it. I mean, he just basically went through the whole spiel of lies that he told the first term.
Yep.
You know, only he included a few little extra little tidbits. And I mean, that child with the cancer, and then, you know, I mean, that was the equivalent of Elon with his own kid on his shoulders there as a suit of armor. I mean, that was disgusting.
I mean, yeah,
you know,
he absolutely used that kid.
Deserve that.
I mean, the kid himself was a cute kid. The kid himself was a cute kid, and good for him for beating cancer. And the fact when he gave that guy a hug, it was like everyone was like, "Aw," but in reality, it was just Donald Trump using this kid to try and gain sympathy points. And of course, now we've seen it today, all across social media, all across the conservative channels. They're all sitting there and they're like, you know, they're all sitting there like, oh, the Democrats wouldn't even stand for the kid who beat cancer. No, the problem is we're not going to stand, and if we stand for the kid who, you know, beat cancer, that means we're enabling Donald Trump to pull these shenanigans. That's the thing.
Yeah, but
that's
the thing is that the kid beat. Yeah, but what they don't understand is that the kid beat cancer because of the funding that was available to make the research possible for cancer research that saved the kid. And that's through the Democrats. That's not through the Republicans. So, you know, once again, as you said, the Republicans take credit for everything that the Democrats do. And it's, you know, it's disgusting. You know, I mean, they're going to go to the bridge and the road ceremonies and cut the ribbon and say, oh, I did this for you folks. And it's like, yeah, that should be named the Biden Highway. That should be named the Biden Bridge. That should be, you know, I mean, none of this stuff comes from these people. They are shameless. And
the other difference is that Biden would never be like, I want this bridge named after me. He would have absolutely said, no, don't name it after me. Name it after somebody who like deserves it from our history, who fought for civil rights or who was an important pioneer in the freedoms of you know, making people less marginalized, whatever. Do that. don't, but you know, Trump would be like, name the bridge after me. I think it should be named after me. Just like the $250 bill should be made for me. Just like there should be another place on Mount Rushmore for me. Because Donald Trump is transactional, and Republican politicians are transactional, and Democratic politicians are pragmatic and altruist in many cases. Now, I'm not going to say all of them are, because you do have some, like Senator Menendez, who were out for themselves and nobody else. But if you're going to look for the party that's going to have more empathy, more altruism, more people who are going to do things just because it's the right thing to do and not because it's the selfish thing to do, you're never going to find that in the MAGA party at this point. So it'll never happen. All the ones that would do that are all either resigned or defeated.
Well, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. They say, "Oh, we're not racist, but we can't have a Harriet Tubman $20 bill."
Right.
Oh, that cannot stand. We can't recognize Black History Month either. We can't recognize any of this stuff. It's all, I mean, it's so obvious, and they are so shameless, and they just go. They like I said, they're like alcoholics. They're addicted to their racism. They use it as a self-esteem tool. I'm white, therefore I'm better than everybody else. It's like, dude, you are the dumbest piece of crap out there. You believe that rather than read a book and actually learn the truth and better yourself. You keep voting in people who keep cutting your education system, who keep cutting your Medicaid, your Medicare, your VA benefits. You are the stupidest people on the planet. You basically go and you shoot yourself in the foot deliberately because somebody says, "Oh, well, this will be my form of protest against the Democrats."
Right.
By shooting yourself in the foot?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people who did that. And going back to the racism thing for a second, I had this thought the other day when they were suggesting, that we should have a $250 bill for Donald Trump or whatever. And, they were thinking back to all of the different currencies that have been tried to use to honor people from our past. And I'm just waiting for Donald Trump to do an executive order to order that all of the Sacagawea coins, all of those coins named after, Native American individual, all of those should be just gotten up and destroyed, because he's not going to want to see, those coins, because, according to them and the MAGA type conservatives, that would be DEI. That would be, something bad. And the only people that should be on our currency are white men. And that's what I'm waiting for that to happen sometime soon. And I hope I'm not right, but unfortunately I'm right more often than I should be.
Well, it says something when Politics Girl, who is originally Canadian, knows more about American history and, and what America is supposed to stand for than these Americans who claim to be fiscally conservative when they refuse to collect tax money to help other people, and that, and have, I mean, tell me one contribution that the conservatives have made to the country that has been, good. They've driven us into wars. Right. They've created tons and tons of veterans who are scarred for life. And I mean, how many, what is it? 20 veterans a day are committing suicide because they can't live with themselves for what they were forced to do because the Republicans sent them. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And if I sound mad, I am mad because, I used to say, what? If we like to complain about the Americans, but when something goes wrong in the world, the first thing people say is America should step in and do something about that. And you guys usually stepped up to the plate and actually did it.
Right.
And that was why we tolerated it. So much of the stupidity that we saw going on in your country. But you know what? That isn't the case anymore. It really is.
These people clearly never saw Spider-Man, because in Spider-Man we often heard that with great power comes great responsibility. And that's the lesson that we should have learned from Spider-Man, is that with the great power that we have as a nation, we have the responsibility to do things both internally and externally, domestically and across the borders. You brought up the veteran suicides thing. Yes, according to the National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report by the VA, on average, 17.6 veteran suicides take place per day. And I guarantee you that once these 80,000 jobs are cut from the VA, once they cut 20% of the workforce in the VA, I guarantee you that number goes up, if not doubles. Mark my words.
Yeah, I know.
Again, I don't want to be right about that one either, but it's going to happen because these people who risk their lives for safety and freedom, these people who put their lives on the line for us, the people who the Republicans used to claim to always support, they're going to suffer because cuts are more important to them than what they're cutting. Because then they're not measuring once, let alone twice, before they determine what's going on. And I have no reason to believe that any of this longer duration type cut that the VA is planning on doing is going to have any sort of responsibility with it. If they were doing it responsible, they'd do attrition. If they were doing anything responsible, they would take more time to study the issue. But to them, studying is a waste of time. So,
well, what's sad is that the military has the saying, "No man left behind." And guess what? The Republican government has gone the other way. They leave everybody behind. They leave everybody homeless. They leave everybody without medical care. They leave everybody without a social safety net. All in the name so that way billionaires who already own everything and have unlimited power and resources and, don't have a worry in the world can continue that fantasy that they live in. It's disgusting. America has failed itself on so many fronts now. It's ridiculous. And I don't know. What are the reasons for it? I'm convinced. I mean, we said it before. We keep saying it over and over again. It started from the Powell memo. It started from Ultra series with Rachel Maddow. She showed that these Nazi collaborators were within the government and were doing things everywhere. There is no end to it. And we didn't root it out. They just crawled under rocks and waited for their opportunity, and that's what they've done. This is their opportunity because they have enough money and they think that they can do the final thing and kill America as it stands and divide it up equally amongst the billionaires. And that's the way I see it. It's scary as fuck.
And I see nothing wrong with your vision either. Your vision to me seems perfectly okay, perfectly sound to me, because that's exactly what's going on. And why more people can't see it domestically, it's because unfortunately too many have blinders on under the guise of patriotism, but to them the patriotism just means loyalty to Donald Trump at this point. Because if to them they used to think it was maybe God, country, party is how conservatives used to do things. Now it's Trump, party, God, then many other things, then country. So
yeah, many people have said I'm ashamed to be an American, and you know what? I think what I'm ashamed of is that we let it get to this point. That's what gets me. Because Republicans claim to be patriotic, but they allowed it to get to this point.
Right.
They allowed this the decency to die in America, because that's the thing. Most Americans are decent people. They really are. But there's a lot of pieces of shit that roam the streets and everything else. Oh, but the immigrants are creating crime. No, they aren't.
Right.
It's
The immigrants
your
are less
cousin.
likely. The immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than other people because they don't want to draw, especially the ones who are here who are undocumented, because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. Especially when now that Donald Trump is president, they're not going to want to do anything because they're going to be more afraid. It's the people like the J6ers who attack cops who are a bigger threat to me than any person who's in here in violation of our border policies. And if there is like the one from Georgia, was it Laken Riley, who got killed by the one Venezuelan gang member or whatever who happened to be here, like the some people are going to always slip through the cracks, and it's a shame that happened to her or to any other victim. But again, Trump, as I said earlier in the show, Donald Trump blamed that on catch and release, and then is now still doing catch and release. So it's not just that the Democrats or the Republicans take credit for the things that Democrats do. The Republicans also do the things that the Democrats do that they criticize the Democrats of, because not only is hypocrisy a conservative prerequisite, but projection is a conservative prerequisite. So,
but like as Texas Paul was saying, he did a thing. He said, "What percentage of serial killers are white?" And it's like over 70%.
Yep.
And they said, what percentage of serial killers are of Hispanic heritage? 2.5%.
Right.
And it's like the numbers tell the story. You guys have lost your way to the point where you have monsters amongst you everywhere. I mean, many of you are so good, but some of you are the worst on the planet. You excuse everything, and you refuse to look in the mirror and see what you've become. It's just mind-boggling. I don't know what else to say. It really is distressing, because you know what? Because the question now is Trump going to come to the defense of Russia and say, you know what, we have to help Russia finish this war in Ukraine? And you know what? I see that as a real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that's heartbreaking. That is really fucking heartbreaking. I'm sorry if I get your show demonetized. I can't help myself today.
No, I'm sure you won't. I'm sure you won't do that. But again, it's just. I mean, as soon as they announced that Donald Trump was the winner in the last election, I'm just like, well, Ukraine's effed. Ukraine is absolutely hosed at this point, because what are we going to do? What are they going to do? And as we've seen already, like, Donald Trump is seeking to put no blame on Putin, and he's trying to put all the blame on Zelensky, and the only reason to do that is because he's beholden to Putin, and Putin holds his puppet strings. And any MAGA person who's out there who tries to say that I'm wrong, I always ask them this. I always ask them, if Donald Trump's really not pro-Putin, really not in Putin's pocket, why hasn't Donald Trump come out ever since he incorrectly said that Ukraine was responsible for the invasion of itself by Russia? Why hasn't he since corrected himself to say, you know what, I was wrong. It was Russians who started this problem. It was Putin who started this problem. And we know why, because he'll never admit that he's wrong, ever, because he'll never think that he's wrong. He doesn't have the mental capacity or the honesty or whatever to be able to say, yes, I was incorrect about this particular thing. That was my bad. I'm sorry. But again, the fact that he hasn't done it is just more proof that they are not going to listen to that Trump is Putin's puppet. He's in Vladimir Putin's pocket. He's always going to do what Putin wants over the needs of the Ukrainian people. And I feel very sorry for the Ukrainian people at this point, because they must be panicking, because how the hell can you not, when the world superpower, the only world superpower pretty much at this point, is backing your enemy, and for no good reason. And instead, and then it goes on and says that Putin was treated badly because of the Russia hoax. No. I mean, the whole Russia hoax is part of the problem with the fact checkers too, is because the report didn't find any quote collusion, but Republicans have taken that to mean that Russia did not interfere in our elections, and there's absolutely evidence to show that Russia absolutely interfered with our elections, because Donald Trump was absolutely the choice of Putin, or whatever was it Krasny? Is it Krasny was the Russian code name of Trump, according to the one Krasnov, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? It tells you something when Zelensky was not even able to say what the terms of the bribe would be,
right,
for continued American assistance. Trump decided, oh, here's what I've decided is fair. We get $500 billion worth of your rare earth minerals.
I mean, and that means Musk gets access to the rare earth minerals. That's one of the ways that Musk will become a trillionaire, is because Donald Trump will allow Musk to be in charge of all that, and all of those rare earth minerals will help him do things like make more stupid cyber cars or cyber trucks and Teslas and whatever, because he'll use those rare earth materials to like build his Tesla batteries and do everything, to help enrich him more off of the backs of us. Under the guise of paying us back for the military aid that we gave to Ukraine. Look, I have no problem with the general idea that, of saying, look, maybe when Ukraine gets free, that maybe we get a little cut of whatever, but don't make it contingent on that. We should be helping Ukraine because it's the right thing to do. It's the correct thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. And we used to have presidents who believed in doing things that are the moral thing to do. And unfortunately, those typically have D's behind their name. And unfortunately, the Democrats did not show themselves yesterday, except for Representative Green, to have that enough of a spine to be able to stand up to these idiots. So,
but that's the thing. You guys are moving backwards. You're deleting the EPA. You're deleting science funding. You're deleting cancer research. You're deleting. The only thing that, as far as I can tell, that you are leading in right now is military research. That's it. And even that, he's going to basically put in, conformists who are yes men, who will do whatever he says and give him whatever he wants. I mean, there is no checks and balances anymore, and
right.
It's alarming. And you guys have got one chance, and that is to get the majority in the Congress, so that way you've got the power of the purse to deny him some of what's there. And then the question is will the Supreme Court enforce what Congress dictates?
Right.
And that's not a guarantee. So, I am really worried that this is the end.
As well you should be.
Because you know what? You guys, we rely as much on you guys as you guys rely on us. And and that's the thing.
You brought up the cancer rates before I forget. I almost forgot this thought, and I had to write it down. But just a note on it. But you mentioned like the cancer rates, whatever. Cancer rates going up, and Trump, I think even last night brought up when he had the young kid up there that he made part of the Secret Service or whatever. That's highly can't do that. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I mean, I guess you could get an honorary, membership or whatever. But still, he brought up, oh, people are getting more and more sick and more cancer, and then use this black kid as a reason why that happens. Well, there's a reason why black people are more likely to get cancer, especially because the poor people live in places like Cancer Alley, like all of these places where we had no regulation on stuff or not enough regulation on these companies, and they dump chemicals and they do all this crap to put pollution,
part of the redlining strategy.
Yeah, part of the redlining strategy. All of the stuff that they've done to force black people into these areas, and then they put these companies in these areas, the industry that harms them, that makes these people more likely to get cancer, and then they're going to blame it on the food, or they're going to blame it on something else, and then that enables RFK Jr. to come up with his bullshit conspiracy theories about what's going on. Meanwhile, more and more people are going to die in the cancer alley because we've now have a president who doesn't want to do any regulation on the companies that are causing these people to get cancer in the first place. And instead, he'll use like scapegoat, processed foods or something. I'm not saying that processed foods are great, but it's these corporations that have more to do with these this kid probably having cancer than a can of potted meat or something. Of course, when you're poor, the poor people can't get things like that are good, high quality, nutritious food. They have to get processed food with their food stamps to get more bang for their buck. And of course, they're probably going to lose a bunch of their food stamps because these conservatives don't want to have kids get free food. One Republican who said that school age kids should have to work for their food. Like, no, school age kids should go to school and should never have to worry about whether or not they can afford to eat. They should never have to use a Make-A-Wish wish to be able to pay off the food debts of the rest of their classmates. No kid should have to be forced to go hungry because they happen to be born into poverty. No kid should have to be sick because they happen to be born into Cancer Alley. You only fix that with more regulations, not less. And of course, we're not going to get that with President Donald, I'm going to kiss the ass of every big corporation and screw the little guy Trump. So, do have to get going soon. There is 1 or 2 points I wanted to make. I think I do have to help my wife soon with some of her nighttime medicine, but I do want to let you get another point before I make my last 2 points of the show before I sign off. So make your last point, and then you'll definitely can call in on Monday.
Well,
the next time
okay,
of the show.
All right. Well, no worries.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that I'll call in on Monday because I'm usually working. But at any rate,
or Wednesday,
one thing
whatever.
that would be interesting. One thing that would be interesting is to compare the rates of cancer between the European nations and the U.S. nation because of the number of additives as well as everything else that's there. That's an easy statistic to look up. I mean, we know why Russians generally Russian men in particular, live to the ripe old age of 50 because they drink themselves to death and they smoke themselves to death.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not hard to see where it is because their life is so miserable. That's how they deal with it. Depression through drugs. I mean, it's just, one is the stimulant, one is the depressant. Oh, gee. I mean, go figure how this all works. I mean, it's
yeah.
I think everybody is feeling that.
A brief look at at least with the AI response. When I looked up cancer rates between Europe and the USA, it actually brought up cancer death rates in the Europe and USA. You probably have to drill down to more specific countries to get a bigger picture or whatever, but this thing is saying in 2018 there were 280 cancer deaths per 100,000 people in Europe compared to 189 per 100,000 people in the United States. However, I don't know if that means that if you're more likely or less likely to get cancer, because that's not the question that I asked. So I may very well have to go look into that for a future show.
Here's the question. If you don't have health care, how can you know whether or not you have cancer?
Decent point.
So where do you get a realistic statistic when most Americans don't have access to health care and can't get the screening in the first place?
Very true.
Okay, so I sorry, but I don't believe that number for a second. I don't believe it for a second.
I actually, because I'm doubting the number too, because it's not what I asked. They gave me the answer that I didn't ask for. But well, you may have given me a good deep dive to try and dive into, if I remember, for Monday's show at least, to try and go a little bit into detail for that. Maybe if I don't do it Monday, maybe Wednesday. But it's definitely something to look into, simply because of the fact that we have an idiot in charge of Department of Health who will probably blame cancer rates on vaccines or on other silly things that have no correlation to cancer rates, cancer deaths, etc. Because we have literally let the inmates run the asylum at this point. So,
Anyway.
Can
you let TV2 Live use my call in their programming? Because I'm not quite sure how I would get in touch with him, because he was like, I would love to have you on as a caller, and I'm like, I'm not sure how that would work out, but I mean, he's more than welcome to have my screams.
Yeah, TV2. If you want to air things of that Big Hook said, and you want to air that, you want to replay bits and pieces of my show, you're more than welcome to do so. If you want to do like a watch party of my live to have that on, I'm more than welcome you to do that. That's fine. That'll help the both of us. I see no problem with that. And if you want to have Big Hook actually call in, if you have a phone number that you could call into and you could work that out, I use Google Voice. If you haven't set up a Google Voice yet for yourself, do it. And y'all can both email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you set that up as well. So anyway, that we can definitely work on setting that up, and we'll
okay. Well, listen, I'm gonna let all the chatters and you go take care of your wife and your two deserving kids.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Okay. And everyone have a good night, and do the right thing, because it appears a lot of people aren't going to do the right thing.
Unfortunately. Well, thank you very much.
Protest as loud as you
Yes,
protest as loud as you can and as often as you can until we get this bum out.
Be more like Al Green than Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you so much,
All
Big
right.
Hook. I will talk to you again another day. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thanks,
All right, bye-bye.
guys. Bye.
All right, we are going to go ahead and turn on the Do Not Disturb and not accept any more calls, because we're going to end the show soon. But there are a couple of things that I do want to bring up. Two things that I missed. One of the things, I think DB Golding over Twitch chat said there was a religious side to the discussion, a particular Jewish group are not vaccinated. It annoys me because most anti-vaxxers have been immunized themselves as children. That is true. There is, especially one Jew, I think they're in New York City, and these are the same group of Jewish people who do a very disgusting thing when it comes to the circumcisions that are done and how they treat the circumcisions that has actually caused a higher rate of like herpes being transmitted from rabbi to young child. It's gross what they do. In fact, the first time I heard about it, I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was going to be some anti-Semitic drivel that was being pushed to make Jewish people look bad. And it was like, nope, this is an actual Jewish community in New York that does things like this. And I'm sure they also don't take vaccines, and as such are harmful to society as a whole. I guess the one beneficial thing with them being so stupid is because they're not following Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition is the most important thing to do to save a life. Under Jewish law, I was raised as a Jewish person. I'm very knowledgeable about Jewish things. It is the most important thing to do in Jewish tradition. The most important thing is to save a life. So taking a vaccine would be not just permissible under Jewish law, it would be required if you can do so by Jewish law, because by getting a vaccine, you are helping to protect other people. You are helping to save lives. So you are required by Jewish law to get a vaccine. Just like if you're a Jewish woman and you happen to have a dangerous pregnancy and your life is at risk, you are not just permitted the choice to have an abortion to treat that problematic, dangerous pregnancy. You are required by Jewish law to get an abortion to save your own life. You have no choice in the matter under Jewish law. You have to save your own life. Period. End of story. So all of these draconian abortion laws that have passed in these states are, punishing Jewish people because they don't allow Jewish people to follow their own religion. I guess the other point I wanted to make that I kind of skipped over from my things I want to talk about in the early part of the show. I think I skipped over this. If I didn't, well, I forgot about it, and here it is again. Apparently Ben Shapiro wants Donald Trump to pardon Derrek Chauvin. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, what is he, frickin' stupid? Derrek Chauvin was convicted in state court of murder. It's the state court that convicted him of murdering George Floyd. So Donald Trump cannot do anything to undo that criminal conviction. Apparently, if you go deep into the article then says that Ben Shapiro acknowledged that Donald Trump could only pardon him for the federal crimes of violating George Floyd's and another kid's civil rights. But that's something that Chauvin pled guilty to. So should you really pardon somebody that pled guilty to the crime? No. Especially that crime. Derrek Chauvin got off light by having a 20-something year sentence. He should have been put in jail, or if there's anybody that was deserving of the death penalty, that's him. I think another point that I did want to make, I think something that Big Hook did bring up about serial killers, and it's a point that where people have been like, well, why are there less black serial killers than white serial killers? Why are the prevalence of serial killers tend to be white and not black, for example? And my answer to that is probably a very simple one, because black men specifically are, 3.5 more times more likely to be shot and killed by police than white men, and those people are unarmed. So if you're more likely to die at the hands of police if you're not a criminal, then you're probably also going to be more likely to die at the hands of police if you are one. So if you are somebody who happens to be black and a serial killer, you're more likely to be stopped after your first crime. You're more likely to have an interaction with the police that ends up killing you, so you don't have the opportunity to kill again. So therefore, that's probably one of the reasons why you're not seeing as many black people who are serial killers as a percentage of the race than you are seeing white people. Of course, you're going to see more white people as serial killers compared to black people, compared to Hispanic people, etc., simply because of the fact that white people still make up a plurality of the nation. They still make up a large chunk of the populace. So clearly you're going to get more serial killers who are white than compared to other races or other backgrounds, other ethnicities, because that's just the nature of the thing. But if you're referring to as a percentage of the population that they're a part of, you're still probably going to see a higher percentage of white people as compared to their race being serial killers than black people, because again, of the way that black people are either shunted off into prison, incarcerated, when they shouldn't be, sent to prison for longer prison sentences, even if they are, deserving to be locked up in prison, and also, and if they don't do a crime, they're more likely to die at the hands of a cop. So therefore, all of those things involved probably make it so that black people are less likely to be serial killers. Not that black people are less likely to consider being it, or who if everything else was equal, then maybe you would see the same percentage amongst all the races. But we don't see the same. Everything else isn't equal because we live in an unequal society where black people are marginalized and oppressed, and a net end result of that is probably, and this is just my speculation, so I'm not citing any facts or statistics on this point, but it's my speculation that the people who are, more likely to be a serial killer while black are probably more likely to have those potential deaths stopped at the hands of law enforcement, regardless if the stoppage of if them being stopped is justified or not. Anyway, again, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Big Hook, for calling in. Any one of you is more than welcome to call in any other future shows. I appreciate, all the good callers. And I did want to say, I did point out in the chat earlier tonight, I did thank Aaron for being a liberal Danimal for 14 months. It seems like it was just yesterday that we reached that point, that we were able to hit that threshold and have enough hours viewed and also have enough subscribers to the channel to, first of all, enable monetization so that we could get, super chats, super stickers, etc., and also then become monetized at the next level where we get commercial advertising revenue as well. I don't make a lot of that at this point because my channel is still relatively small comparatively to other creators, but I would not have been able to have reached this point of getting monetized on YouTube without the help of each and every one of you who watches the videos, who participates in the chats, who helps the algorithms, who do all that stuff to help make this show a better show than it was previously, simply because y'all are here, y'all are supporting me, y'all are helping me out, and that's one of the things that makes me feel really great about doing this show, is to have the support of each and every one of you. So thank y'all so much. We will continue to fight the good fight and to resist, and let's all resist like Al Green and not resist like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I need to find some way to make that a shirt too. I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe not. My step siblings need to get that website up and running so I can start putting my other stuff up there as well. But until that happens, maybe we'll figure something else out. I don't know. But again, thank you all for very much watching. If you're watching on Twitch, you'll get a heart out again because I still haven't figured out a good song to play as the outro that will be playable on both. But until then, so again, heart out for y'all who are watching on Twitch, but we'll do the regular out on on YouTube, liberaldanradio.com. Remember, we'll be here Mondays and Wednesdays. If I go live for any other reason, I will post it on Blue Sky. I'll post it on Facebook. I'll try to remember to post it here as well. But again, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. I couldn't do this show without all of your help and all your support. So just hit an extra like button one more time. Make an extra comment. Share an extra video, and that will make the show even better. And again, it will be all because of y'all's helping me out. So again, thank you so much. Hope each and one of you have a great night. Peace.